right, good afternoon. This is a convening of the Frankfort Plant Board Directors for a special meeting. On the agenda this afternoon is one item, but before we get to that, I'll ask Kathy if she'll call the roll of the Board Directors, please.
Member Rosen?
Here.
Member Ludwig?
Present?
Member Green?
Here.
Member Podratsky?
Present.
Member Baldwin?
Here.
All right, all 5 members present. On the agenda this afternoon is one item, and that is a continuation from yesterday, and that is an information item, and that's to continue reviewing the proposed fiscal year 16 to 17 budget. Let's see, on our agenda this afternoon then is, I'm not sure who's going to go first here, water or electric? Or,
We had on the agenda the water's next.
okay,
Yeah.
I guess that would be David.
David, were you going to say something to Mary?
Oh, you're fine.
We do have, we'll go with David, I'll just do my, anything like that.
I thought I'd go in the order that you see in the budget, talk a little bit about capital, just put a highlight in the capital budget, the funding, how it relates to the rate increases that we have proposed, talk about a few of the expenses, have a brief discussion about rates, and then follow up with some questions, if that's okay with the board. Start off on page 21. Line item 560. It's a major capital expense for us every year. It's about $300,000 for meter replacement. We have about a 15-year cycle for replacing meters. Currently, we have about 60% of those meters that are radio read. That equates to about 11 to 1,300 different meters a year is what that item relates to. On the next page, page 22, the first item is AC and galvanized program. 2017, we have $809,500 budgeted. This is for replacement of all of our older lines. This represents only about replacement of 1% of our entire distribution system every year. The next item that I'm going to talk about are related to the reservoir, line 585. We have $225,000 budgeted and next year for piping, yard piping up at the reservoir. The next line, there's a under drain under Tanglewood that needs to be upgraded. There's $15,000 for that. Line 595 is what's left on the engineering for the new reservoir. And obviously line 605, there's a $4 million capital expenditure for reservoir replacement in FY 2017-2018. Going on down to line 705 at the water treatment plant. If the board will recall, about 2 months ago, we awarded buying some valves. That is for the continuation of that project to install them. The next large item is line item 720, which is a traveling screen. If the board remember, I guess it was about 1.5 years, 2 years ago, we rebuilt a traveling screen at the water treatment plant. We actually have 2. This is for a total replacement of the one that's left down there at $111,290. That's really all that I had highlighted in my budget to talk about for as far as large items. I'll be happy to answer any questions or direct any questions if anybody has any specific questions about any capital projects.
Well, I had one question. On replacing the screens, is that a company coming in and doing it for us, or is that the parts and we do it ourselves, or?
In this particular item, it would be a new screen, but we will have the manufacturer of that screen come in and install it for us.
Okay. And so that's all of that cost?
That's all included. It includes a crane rental as well.
Oh.
Yeah, what, about 74 feet tall?
A little bit taller than that, yeah.
So yeah, it takes a huge crane.
Okay.
The four main members on those photos we
Yeah.
So the screen itself is 74 feet?
Yeah, it sits, if you're in the river looking back at the intake, you'll see two big machines that
Okay.
are on the back dock. Actually, the screen part goes all the way down through the intake to the river. So it's 74 feet long up to the deck. And of course, that has to come out, so we have to set a crane in front of the building to reach over the building and be able to lift that screen. I forget how many tons it weighed, but,
It takes a 200-ton crane to pick it.
and then it actually picks it up over top of the building and lay it down in the front. So it's a pretty good size operation when that happens.
About how wide is it, like 6 feet?
4 feet.
Oh, okay.
It's a narrow, long screen. If you know anything about screens and intakes, most screens are shorter but wider. But that's a deep intake and it's a narrow intake. So it's, instead of being short and wide, it's long and narrow.
Thank you.
Now, if you'd like to turn to page 26, we'll go over some of the funding. Lines 5 through 40 are revenue that come into the water department through various avenues. You'll take note that on line 15, we're showing a reduction in revenue from the wholesale class in FY 17-18. We're expecting the loss of a part of one of our large wholesale customers. So we've taken that into consideration. The only other thing that I wanted to mention there is the rate increases that we're having the hearing on tonight, and that's a result of the cost of service study that Janet Fleming was here presenting on last month. That is represented in line 40, an additional revenue required. Those are the rate increases that we've proposed in years 1 through 5 to get us to the cost of service study funding levels that have been identified. Going on down into operating expenses, line 50 through 85. The two major cost drivers there are power and chemicals. That's typical for any water treatment plant operation. The other item that I wanted to mention is line 105 down in water distribution. You can see that we have $380,000 budgeted in this coming budget year in distribution. $220,000 of that $380,000 is for a liner in the reservoir. We feel that it's necessary to put a liner in the reservoir to give us some additional level of insurance against any kind of construction-related mishaps that might occur with the replacement of the reservoir. It's basically a flexible membrane that goes inside the reservoir that would minimize any leaks should we have any shifting or vibration-related occurrences going on.
That would just be in one tank?
That would just be in the one tank, yes, sir.
So we're taking out one tank and leaving the other tank, and it's in the other tank?
We have to have at least one tank in operation. So the liner would go into that one tank that we're keeping in operation while we're taking the other side out of service and replacing it. Now the game plan is once that new side gets replaced, we will demo the other side as well.
Okay.
Can't resell the liner, can we?
No, but we could keep it for future use.
Where would you store it? I mean, wouldn't it be kind of large?
Well, it comes in rolls,
Oh,
and they're unrolled, and the seams are thermo sealed together. So we could cut that, roll it up, and keep it for future use. Whether or not we would ever use it in the future or not is a gamble. But
I wonder, just kind of wild thought, if we could sell it to someone else who might want to use it.
we could certainly try that.
Somebody that needs a big slip and slide.
There you go.
Well, that, or somebody else has a reservoir they're doing stuff to.
That's really all I had planned to talk about as far as funding or expenses, unless the board has any additional questions on those pages.
A general question just about the decrease in revenue. I mean, are there any opportunities out there? Are we pursuing any opportunities to seek more commercial clients to try to offset that shift in demand?
That's a good question. I guess in the last 5 years, we have we've gained a new wholesale customer. We have increased sales under a new purchase supply contract with another wholesale customer. And we've reached out to many of them trying to sell more water. The problem is we're in a small geographic area, and our water service territory and the surrounding water service territories of our wholesale customers, they're political boundaries. So unless they have a large customer comes in and their need goes up, or population shifts dramatically, we're really not in an opportunity to sell more water to our retail class unless an opportunity comes up with increasing sales to an outside wholesale customer, or we have a larger industrial customer coming in.
Are there opportunities to expand that political boundary, or is that set and there's no?
That would be a discussion at the county level. I mean, my gut feeling is those other political boundaries are happy with the political boundaries that they have. So.
So really what we need to see is an increase in new home building, or an increase in some type of industrial development that would create a larger demand for water.
Very true.
David, you were meeting with the city of Georgetown to see if we could increase sales to Georgetown. You had that meeting?
I have had that meeting, and as you know, Georgetown has their own water treatment plant. And they've invested a lot of money in keeping that water treatment plant up to date, and they would like to continue treating as much water as they can. And if I were in their position, I would too. Our opportunities exist with Georgetown possibly in the future, but right now, as long as their source of supply, which is Royal Spring, as long as it has water in the spring, their long-term plan is to continue to get water out of that spring.
You have additional revenue required in 16, 17, 17, 18, particularly 17, 18. Where do we anticipate the money coming from?
Those are proposed to be as part of rate increases. We have a rate increase proposed for this year and FY 18, 19, 20, and 21.
So if you were to look at page 25, the line 10, the operating revenue, which is the same as line 45 on page 26, those numbers for each of the 5 years agree right back to the water cost of service study as far as the amount of revenue needed each year, or required each year to meet operational capital. We talk about averaging about a 1% drop in usage a year. When you look at the average retail rate, what that spreads out to be is around $4. So we're about $100,000 a year in water sales declining each year. So if we did nothing, we're in the 5-year budget $500,000 less than we need to be. So the idea of these water cost and service studies included all the upcoming operational costs, all the capital plans, which includes the reservoir. Everything that you see in this 5-year plan is represented in the needs that we have for the water cost and service that we'll talk about at 5 o'clock.
A few days ago, I sent out an email. I had a water rate comparison that is done by the Bluegrass Area Development District. I have copies of that if the board would like me to hand that out. For as long as I can remember, we've had a position in our rates of being above the average in the Bluegrass Area Development District, but below the highest one. We continue to pursue to be in that, and the rate proposals that we have in front of you that we'll be discussing at 5 o'clock, that keeps us in that same general area, above the average, but certainly less than the highest provider in the region. I'll be happy to answer any rate-related questions if you might have any.
Something I combined electric and water, we've got reserves, electric division has enough to offset the deficit in water. With the rate increases we're asking for, we'll discuss tonight at 5 and also ask for approval in June. That you can see on the first fiscal year 17, that we have a deficit of $1.5 million. That begins to increase into year 4, but as we pay off our Series 2009 water and electric bonds, we start to see that deficit begin to decrease again. So we're aware that we have a deficit. We're aware that there's subsidization going on between electric and water. In the idea, when we look at electric, water, cable, telecom, we want to have the revenues from those divisions supporting the expenses of that division and make sure that each can hold their own, to make sure there's appropriate pricing to our customers and that costs are allocated appropriately. So we're looking to change course and try to get back to where we can actually have a positive reserve balance for water, but that is on our radar, and we definitely, in the long term, as we begin to pay off debt, you can see in our debt payments that we have each year are substantial, and as we begin to pay those off, that'll help to decrease the pressure of reserves as well. So just want to point that out.
And to put some sort of magnitude on the rate increase, or lack thereof magnitude, we're talking about $1.84 increase to the average residential city customer and $1.60 increase into the average county customer. So still for less than $1 a day is what we are making water available to the average city customer, and slightly over $1 a day to the average residential county customer.
If you look at line 170 on page 25, the water division capital additions, you'll notice we have 2.3 in this first year, 2017. The 5.6 million increase in year 2 due to the reservoirs, 4 million of that. And then you can see we range between 1.7 and 1.8 million for the years 3 through 5. That's actually below the rate of depreciation. We're pretty much down to the, other than the reservoir, we're pretty much at meter replacements and just replacing lines that are old and need to be replaced in the water division. So we have incurred debt rebuilding the water treatment plant, but going forward, I mean, we're running pretty thin on replacing what needs to be replaced, meter change-outs, and that's about it. So just want to point that out as well. Questions, I've got something I'd like to point out on page 26, and this will be a part of the summary of changes that I mentioned, providing to the board each day. When we're sitting and looking presenting the budget today, on line 65 of page 26, pumping power, there is an additional amount in year 17 of $157,000. In talking to Chris, that's an elevated level for planned maintenance. We need to decrease in year 2 that repair pumping maintenance down to $80,000, and increasing at, I believe, 4% a year up to $92,600 in year 5. So that's actually a decrease in expenses. Just want to point that out. The paper that Katrina's pointing out to you, passing out to you today, is just a summary of the changes we discussed yesterday, of the COLA change. The change I just mentioned now, a decrease, or in parentheses, shows an increase in expenses, and a positive number shows a decrease in expenses. So there's another item that we looked at yesterday in cable that I'll just wait till we get done with electric and discuss that change to you. But that is just a positive change. I want to point out that we're dropping that pumping maintenance down in years 2 through 5.
That was an error on my behalf.
We like those errors though, than the other way.
Besides the reservoir, do we have anything major planned in the water division I mean, we've replaced, we built some buildings down there. We've put in a generator. We've done a lot of construction down in that area in the last 4 years. Other than the reservoir, is there anything on the horizon that we should be?
Not anything that we are planning, other than just continuing some of the replacement of some of the existing infrastructure at the water treatment plant that's original to the plant, like the valves that were in the budget.
Right. We've got an area called the pipe gallery, and that's where all of our valves, large pipes and things are from the filters. And we've got what we call isolation valves that were not replaced during the SCADA project, that we actually had in the budget last year, but we removed them. And we've got it now. I think we've got engineering in year 5 to look at that. But that, right now, I think the cost of those valves is like $1.2 million to replace them all, and that's the way it'll work. But like I said, I think we've got engineering in year 5 for that. That's the only thing I know at the water treatment plant. Yeah.
Okay.
For some time in the past, we talked about the need to modernize the lab. And I've heard no mention of that this time around. Is
We've
pushed
got
way
that.
off in the future?
We have that in there, but instead of building a new lab, what we're considering is just remodeling the one we have. So many of the analysis that we've done in the past now with some of the requirements, compliance requirements, it's actually easier as far as certification to farm out a lot of that work. So we've picked up some other work, but we're not doing as much of the work that we did in the past that we needed a second lab or a larger lab. So we're looking at maybe just modernize the lab we have, the cabinetry and the cabinets and basically everything except for some of the instruments is original to the plant. So I don't know what year it was, but year 4 or 5, I think we've got some engineering in there for that. But it's not, as far as the construction, it's not in this 5-year plan.
Anything else for Mr. Billing? David, do you have anything else for us at this time?
No, sir. It's a lean budget. It's not a lot in there other than the reservoir, which obviously needs to be replaced, and the water department. We believe in trying to hold our expenses flat, and you'll see that reflected in the budget.
What's the current thinking on when we can embark on the reservoir rehab?
Can you repeat?
Now that the head end is farther along, what's the latest thinking on when we might be able to proceed with the reservoir?
We plan on picking up the pencils and finishing the engineering in this coming budget year and being ready to start construction at the beginning of next budget year. That's the schedule.
Well, if David doesn't have anything else, I guess we can move on to electric. That,
Mr. Chairman, I think unless David wants to do summary first, we'll do it just the same way. Okay, if that's fine with you all, we'll just kind of start the same thing, kind of the same way that water did it. The capital on page 21 for electric is where we will kind of start. Unless the board wants to do it differently, I don't think we were going to go line by line. We were going to kind of hit the major items. But certainly we'll answer any questions or do it differently if you all would prefer. I guess if you start down the list, you might look at line 320. It says downtown. What that actually is the voltage conversion for the downtown area of Frankfort. We put a little bit of this in the narrative, but we've been doing a voltage conversion in our system for about 30 years. And we're really starting to wrap that up. East Main that we've been working on, and you've seen that work we've done there, has been part of that. It was a big part of that. We were at one voltage, 8320, for I guess the whole system was, wasn't it, at one time?
4160.
Yeah, 4160, yeah. And so we're moving to 13.2. Everything just about has been done. The reasons for doing that, you improve your reliability. You end up with, when you do the voltage conversions, you end up going through the system with a fine-tooth comb and looking for any kind of issues. So that alone improves your reliability. We've had these islands of different voltages kind of in the middle of our system, and if we get everything to the same voltage, as you can imagine, it allows us a lot more system flexibility in how we switch, how we do things. It increases efficiency. When your voltage goes up, your losses go down through your resistive heating. So that's another improvement. And another real advantage to it is it helps decrease our inventory levels on a lot of our equipment. For years and years, we've had to buy dual voltage transformers that could be used in either location. And so that will go away. We won't have to do that anymore as we finish up the voltage conversions. If you notice in our budget on 320 there, we have that over 3 years. And we'll slowly finish that conversion out, hopefully around 2019, and start to phase out all those other, we have 2 other substations that will be converted, and one of them will probably completely go away when we do the process.
And
So, cool.
And what you see after the year 3 of the voltage conversions, if you look in year 2021, I'm sorry, down on line 460, that's the transformer we'll be buying to finish it all. After we do all the distribution transformers, then we have to replace the station transformer. So, and that's the reason for that big ticket item in 2021, is after we get done the under part of it, we're ready for the power part.
And moving on down the list, line 360, distribution automation. We have some money in every year that we do. I will refer to that, and also line 400, which is SCADA network improvements, to kind of talk a little bit about smart grid and some of those type things, where we're trying to go in the future. We'll have a conversation too about AMI and some of those things. Our goal long term is to improve the amount of technology, smart grid components that are in our system. Our SCADA system, reclosers, a lot of switchers, smart fault indicators, those type of things all in the system really start to make your system react more automatically to issues and do a lot of switching around. It'll improve your reliability, your efficiencies, all those kind of things, not to mention customer service. You can offer a lot of things to your customers that you can't with the current system that we have. The key to all that is the two-way communication between our head and out to the system. Most of the time you think of it today, AMI, you think of smart meters, and that's certainly a huge piece of it. But the real heart to all that is your communication path. Smart meters are a big key, but there's so many technology pieces that get added every year they come up with from like I said, fault indicators, reclosers, all the different things that can be done. If you have that communication path out into the field, you can basically mold your system to whatever you need to going forward. So as we started to look at the AMI, to putting that in the budget, what we ran into, it's kind of like going to buy a car. And if you go to buy a car, there's 100 different options on a car. And somebody says, well, how much is your car? And you're like, well, it depends on what kind of options I get on it. It can be fairly cheap or extremely expensive depending on the options you add to it. So we were trying to put AMI in the budget as a plan, and I kept getting different costs from people, as high as 10 million down to quite a bit less. But what we really ran into, the more we looked at that, was you really have to determine what kind of options you want, what options make sense, and where you go there. We'll see in the budget a little bit later where we have a business case next year in the budget for AMI, and we think that's really important to try to pin down what technologies we want to do with AMI, what the real costs are, what things pay for themselves with improved efficiencies and those kind of things, and what particular options or items won't. And it was almost impossible to try to put anything in the budget without having that study done so that we can bring it back to the board and help decide this makes sense and this doesn't. You really, if I'd have put $10 million in there, it would have been a wild guess, really. So we do have the money in there for the study next year, and we will like I said, we'll get that done, we'll bring all that stuff back to the board, and we'll make those decisions then on where to move forward. And by the time we roll around to next year's budget, we should have some really good numbers and some really good decisions made on what we move forward in the AMI. So that's why you don't see any AMI in there in the capital side going forward right now. But again, the AMI outage management, that's another tool, another piece of technology that really needs to be added to our system. The key piece you need to do that is you've got to have your GIS system up and running in a connectivity model that actually is connected, that works well. We have all of our GIS data, but we don't have the connectivity model made, or the connectivity fully implemented, and there's a lot of issues there. We do have money, I'll touch on that when we get to it. We have money to continue to work on our GIS mapping. We're hoping to finish that up the rest of this year and next year, and then we have everything ready to go so that we can start to add the outage management system, the AMI can be added, information can be added to that. They all work together. So all those pieces, outage management, your SCADA, your smart grid, your AMI, the GIS pieces, all really need to work together, and we're going to be adding bits and pieces of those as we go over the next few years to really kind of revolutionize the way we can communicate with our customers. There's just a lot of benefits there, from improved customer service, reliability, your system intelligence and the decisions we make on the system, and then your system flexibility and of course efficiencies going forward. So again, item 400 and 360 are two pieces of that kind of automation goal, bringing more technology to our system. You'll also notice over all the years ahead, there's quite a few overhead reconductor projects. For instance, line 330, 335, 340, 345, those are the ones just coming up in 2017. You'll see 385, line 385, 390, 385, I was off there, 405 and 410, and they're all the way down through there, just different reconductor projects. We spent about 25 years working on the underground. We've got most of that replaced as we went through the system. There's still some places that could be replaced. I'm not talking about building new underground. I'm talking about replacing older underground that was there. And we kind of worked through those as we did. We got those in really good shape. Now we're trying to work on a lot of the overhead lines. A lot of these really, well, they're kind of all over the system. A lot of them are further out in our system now, as you've known over the last few years. Indian Hills and Thornhill and Crestwood. And
Those are the three big ones we've been working on, and now we're branching out to other parts of the system that are, we get a lot of that information based upon, if we have an out, like you used to have, every time you have a windstorm or a little thunderstorm, we always had a lot of outages in Indian Hills. That's how we base a lot of this on. We work with engineering, and they've got the GS up a lot where they can go through and pick. We were looking for copper wire at one time. We were having problems with certain size wire, and that's kind of how we come with all these projects. Is we base upon where we're having trouble at, trying to eliminate trouble. We find those areas and we work on those, and then we move on. So.
Yeah, we've definitely seen the improvements in our reliability numbers as we've gone through these projects. Again, as you go to reconductor those, you do find a lot of issues. They certainly improve reliability for our customers, but they also improve efficiency. We have minimum wire sizes we use now, and it's quite a bit bigger than the old thin 6 copper that we used to use in copper weld. And those are much more resilient to tree limbs and things like that happen. So again, we continue to do those. A lot of those projects, especially, it's not really cost feasible to convert those overhead projects to underground, just do that because of the sheer cost involved. But many of these projects, especially when you move out into the far rural areas, really pays a lot of dividends for us in our reliability. And so you see quite a few of those. There's this long-term goal of slowly working through all those projects and try to get those done and improve all those lines.
So then, when you say reconductor, that means you're upgrading the size of the diameter of the conductor and probably the connectors as well?
Yes, ma'am. Basically, you take down all the wire and all the connectors and everything done. That's all.
Old insulators. That's when we find a lot of rotten poles. We change out to new poles, standard height poles. We've got a lot of poles that are 35-foot poles, which is not a standard height pole. A standard height pole now is 45 foot because you have all the communications that go on them also. So, you know, when we go in these areas, we get to do a lot of tree trimming, and we get to do a lot of pole replacement, and we go through pretty much and you replace everything there with new stuff. It's stuff. Some of the stuff there is probably from back in 1940, 1950s, 60s. You know, it's relatively old. So, in essence, you're almost building a brand new system, and we don't have to go back for a while. We hope so.
Okay, thank you.
That is I guess the biggest items that I would kind of talk about on our capital project. I mean, we do have things like we're continually trying to replace switches, both especially transmission switches are brought out in here. They're large ticket items, breakers and substations, those kind of things. In 1974, 75, in that range, they did a transmission system conversion. And when they did, they went to 34.5 to 69 kV. And when they did that, it necessitated changing almost all of the substation transformers in the system and redoing a lot of the substations that the plant board had at the time. So what that in effect gave us was a substation transmission system that was primarily built in 1974. So as you can imagine, all of our station transformers, all of our breakers, everything were all coming to the end of their service life at the same time. So we've spent quite a bit of time over the past 10 years, at least, maybe it's longer than that by now, but 10 years to try to start staggering these things so as they need their next replacement, they won't hit the next group all at one time. So we've gotten pretty far down the road on that. That's been a lot of our expenses over the past few years, has been on substations. And again, now we're really trying to focus a lot more out on our overhead.
And that will be
lines.
probably going forward. You know, we got a couple of years here. We'll probably have our distribution breakers finally changed out. Then we'll have to start hitting the large ticket items, which is the substation transformers, the power transformers. And that's, you know, as you see some of the past East Main and this projected into 2021, you know, our goal is every 3 years to try to replace, if we find one that needs to be replaced, we're going to replace our power transformers. So, you know, that will be our long-term goals as far as once we get everything else done in the substations, we've got to tackle the transformers. So,
if you don't have any other questions on the specific capital items, if you're fine with that.
One thing I wondered about was taking electric above ground lines underground. Is there any activity in that area, taking existing lines under or new construction being built underground?
new construction, there's a city and county ordinance that underground, any new subdivision has to be underground. The outside perimeter could be overhead, but anything internal of a subdivision has to be underground. As Vince said a while ago, it's the feasibility of some of these areas. I'd hate to even give you a price range of how much we spend. You figure the numbers are almost probably 3 times as much as what this number is to take all that utilities underground. And then what you have problems is if you do go underground, you have all these residential houses that have services for overhead service, and then the customer's going to have to convert their services to underground services. So, you know, it's very cost prohibited almost. Now, we do try to, you know, in the long-term plan after 2021, there's some areas downtown Frankfort we'd like to try to get underground because the city's gotten grant money and replaced some of them. And we know there's like Lewis Street Alley or Catfish Alley, what you're going to call it. And those alleys like that, those are still overhead. We'd like to eventually get those underground. We've kind of somewhat, when we're in those areas and we have the opportunity, we do put conduit in the ground now. So we can go back and get some conductors over from overhead to underground.
I think opportunity is the key word in those situations. When the county put in their new building, we actually put as much of that underground as we could, and we pushed as hard as we could, but you ran into other customers around there who, you know, maybe they didn't have $50,000 to replace their heating and air system to a different voltage to go to the voltages we have to use for underground. And it kept us from being able to completely convert that whole alley to underground. That's one of the biggest hurdles when you run into, like he was talking about residential. If each residential customer has to switch his overhead service to underground, that's about $1,000 minimum for each customer to do. And so obviously that's prohibitive in many ways. When the state put in the new transportation building, we converted a lot of that area underground. You'll find a lot of poles down there with, looks like conductors run up the pole and then they drop overhead to the house, and we end up having to do that in a lot of cases because the customer doesn't want to convert their stuff, but we put everything else underground when we have the opportunity. But opportunities are kind of when we do that you think of KSU, and the stuff they're getting ready to do with their Pedway Bridge. All that is being converted to underground in that area. For the same reason, there was an opportunity there, so that's what we did. So,
Does the East Main substation cover downtown Frankfort? Supply?
It has one line that does run downtown. We use it primarily, it goes through South Frankfort, and it's a redundant line really for both the Capitol and for the transportation building downtown. Now with us doing this new addition, that's gonna free up some space that we can actually, we're gonna have plans in the future that gives us more plans to get more lines downtown from that substation to tie up the other substations, so.
South Frankfort and this area have the different, not this area, across the river, they have a different voltage. That's part of that voltage conversion. So East Main is a different voltage. It can't.
Yeah.
Currently, it can't feed that older part of town right
Yeah,
now.
once we get downtown Frankfort converted, then it's gonna give us a whole lot of flexibility to feed from all kinds of different directions, so.
Could you give us, you mentioned some challenges you're having with the connectivity of the GIS stuff. Could you give us some examples, a little more detail of what that is?
For instance, when we put the whole system in, we had quite a bit of turnover through the years that the data was being put in, and kind of unbeknownst at the time, they were doing things a little differently each time, so they didn't follow a consistent model. Some of it would be fairly close, so things were put in different ways. And when we went to try to make the connectivity of all the lines, there's so many issues there. We just don't have connectivity.
So it's more of a data quality issue and consistency of data.
It's a quality issue. We actually used to use it was ArcFM, Miners products, and we used to use a lot of that. And our Esri's come so far along that they've kind of integrated a lot of those things as they go through, and they're to the point now we really don't need those special products. So we're kind of dropping that, and we're kind of moving everything just to an Esri platform. I think it gives us a lot more flexibility, and we have a lot of compatibility issues with those other softwares. So we're in the process of doing that, of changing it over to just an Esri product and moving off the ArcFM stuff. And again, repairing kind of building the connectivity really in many cases, and developing some apps and trying to move a lot of the stuff to the folks out in the field in the trucks so they can make some notes and make changes, and actually as they switch and do those kind of things, they can see things real time.
We're doing all that with in-house resources.
We're doing a lot of the database work we're doing in-house, a lot of the physically changing a lot of the software and doing a lot of the things we are doing in-house. We're getting a lot of help from a particular company called Swova, and they're in Northern Kentucky, and they're actually giving us a lot of help. They've done a lot of work for Nashville Electric. They're giving us a lot of help with the direction, kind of the bigger picture, and kind of what technologies are there and where they're going, and they're kind of helping guide us through that process, which has been very helpful. We kind of went this way and this way and this way, and we never really had a real good path, and now I think we do, and so we've been working on that for about 4 months, I think, working on some of those things.
Okay, great. Thanks.
Sure. If there aren't any more questions on the capital part, we'll move over to I'm going to go over to page 24. It's 23 and 24. But let's go to 24. I think David Denton will cover 23 when he gets to his part. If you look at operating revenues and expenses, we've just kind of chosen to keep those flat. We've kind of taken different ways of doing it different years. All of our forecasts and models show very, very small growth, 0.5% in most cases, and they kind of jump up and down. One year you'll have a little more, and it'll go down the next year, and it kind of averages out to about 0.5%. So we just decided from a conservative standpoint to keep those flat. And as David will talk about the rate increase that we do have with KU and a little bit for the Frankfort Plant Board, he is reflected in this current budget year, but we don't foresee any more after that from the plant board. Now certainly KU, we have no idea what kind of rate increases they'll give us up through 18-19, but it's the way it is every year. We find that out in the 1st of May, and then we're stuck trying to fix that in about 2 months' time to move forward. So I actually will not miss that come 2019, but anyway, if you let's let's see, if you look at line 70, you'll see overhead lines, $745,000. The biggest portion of that, which is what, 545, is for tree trimming. That's a large expense item we've had for years and years. I'll let Scott speak a little about tree trimming. He's the one that sees all the benefits.
Tree trimming, it seems like a lot of money, but for the benefits we reap from it, as I said earlier, I remember back in the late 80s and early 90s, a 10-mile-an-hour wind would cause 2 days worth of work here because of trees. Our reliability numbers, our safety numbers reflect our progressive tree trimming. And anything you read about outages, utility outages, the biggest cause for most utility companies, 60-some%, is tree problems. Our tree numbers are really, really low. We're proud of that because of the aggressive tree trimming. And it's $545,000. We've run 2 full-time crews, and we've got a third crew that probably works about 9 months out of the year. So in essence, we almost got 3 full-time crews. We chose not to increase that number this budget year or the next budget year because we're at the point now that we're seeing that we're getting what we need to get done at the price we're doing. So, and we're hoping to keep it that way. So, but they're paying for themselves, and it's it reduces the cost of overtime because, like I said before, you'd have 4 or 5 guys working almost every night, putting stuff back up from trees, and now you don't have that issue. So.
I think you've seen with our reliability numbers, we're running about 4 times better than the national average, and a huge part of that is just from that reason. It's from tree trimming.
What line are we talking about for tree trimming?
That would be line 70.
It's in the 745,000, about 545 of that.
That's how much we spend. Now that's not counting cable park. That's just electric tree trimming. So.
They just seem like we've been writing checks for about $20,000, $14,000 to $20,000 each time, right?
For tree trimming, probably, yeah.
Oh yes, that's about right. And we have compared ourselves with other utility companies. I do know, got information what Paducah's spending and what Bowling Green spends, and Bowling Green is spending. I can tell you right now how much they're spending. They got the same amount of crews as we do. They are actually running. See, I had it sitting on top. Paducah is spending over $600,000 a year in tree trimming, and Bowling Green is spending a little over $700,000 a year. And they're both running 3-man crews. They got 3 3-man crews. So we got 3 3-man crews also. And we're at 545. So that has a whole lot to do with our contract price too. We've got a good contract price right now. We will have to rebid next year tree trimming, so that may have to go up some. We don't know, but we'll cross that bridge when next year gets here for the bid process.
Have we done any education about trying to encourage people to plant trees not in the power line area?
Yeah, we for your information,
trees?
there's where the service center is over on Hickory Drive.
Mm-hmm.
There's we call it a little tree farm. We worked with actually the Parks and Rec and us went together, and there's all kinds of trees planted there that are suitable to be planted near power lines or under power lines, and they've got little, they got a little pavilion up there.
Mm-hmm.
The city is supposed to be putting a plaque in there with what each tree number, what each tree is, so customers can actually come up there and look and see. Well, look, this is a flowering maple tree, and it only gets this tall. It's very pretty. I can buy this one. We do have brochures that we send out. We give to customers talking about distances to keep trees from power lines. We like Reforest Frankfort. We always have a booth down there talking to people. When we are in areas treating trees, they always tend to give customers pamphlets to show customers, if you plant this kind of tree here, it's going to have to get trimmed. If you plant it over here, you don't have to. So, but some people, the problem we run into is utility lines are always on the back of the property line, and everybody wants to have privacy from their neighbors. So the first thing they do is plant a tree on the property line, and it's right at the power line. So, and that's.
Yep. Does the city have ordinances on that, or?
The city does have some kind of ordinances. I don't remember, I don't have all the ordinances in
Oh.
front of me. I just actually met the lady, you know, it used to be Mr. Kamak. He used to be the arborist, and now, of course, he's retired, and I cannot remember the lady's name. I met her for the first time the other day, and her and I are gonna get together later on, and we're gonna try to get Tree USA certified. Plant board, this is what our goal is. Me and her were talking about the other day, so she's got some ideas, and I've got some ideas, and we're gonna start talking to one another here shortly,
Well, sounds good.
so.
If you continue down the list, 170, the consulting fees, the huge majority of that, 745,000 of it, are specifically for KYMEA. I know you kind of look at that number and you can say, well, that's a lot of money for consulting fees, but I think what you have to think about with the power side of things is you're dealing with about a $49 million a year cost to the plant board. Even a 2% reduction in our power costs through KYMEA would be about a $980,000 a year savings a year. So the consulting fees are large especially compared to what other things we do. But I think you just have to take into consideration the sheer amount of money that can be saved depending on those decisions that are made. And it's a very specialized field. So anyway, that does reflect those, and we do reflect the consulting services going down as we move forward and start to get KYMEA up and going. And some of those costs, you won't have the engineering or the consulting fees that we have of getting the situation rolling. Then you will have the administration costs of KYMEA that will be in your power bill, and a lot of those will move to those kind of situations. We will, of course, there'll be consulting fees pertaining to power supplies. We look at new sources, as we talked about some renewables, and we talk about some of the generators and those kind of things that we may be able to use. There may be some Frankfort specifically wants to look at that we may pay all the engineering fees for, and there may be some that all the members of KYMEA want to be involved in, and in those cases we wouldn't have to pay the full cost, we would just pay our piece of it. So, but anyway, that explains some of the consulting fees.
So then is that, out of that 900, that's includes our portion of the startup cost for KYMEA plus outside consulting, or is that just outside consulting?
That's just outside consulting, that is, yes.
Is that analogous to what the other members approaching our size are spending on outside consulting?
The way it's divided up is by your usage. It depends on, in KYMEA, depending on what you're doing, OMU, Owensboro Municipal, may be included or may not. If they're included in a particular, if they're taking part in this particular piece of the consulting work, we pay about, I think it's around 32%, and they're in the 36, 38% range. If it's the all requirements group, not including OMU, that we're a part of, we're about 48% of that. So any of those fees and costs, that's how much of the energy we are. If you don't count OMU, we're 48%. So in those cases, we're paying that percentage. That's how it was determined to pay engineering fees and all kind of different fees like that. It's by usage. That's kind of the highlights. Again, I mean, our bigger goals are kind of with technology and rebuilding our overhead lines, and obviously the power supply change, which is coming, doesn't really affect us from an operational level on the day-to-day. The reliability will stay the same as the KU. We're using the same lines, and technically the same electrons are flowing. So that stuff stays the same. You know, that's kind of up at a little different level. But from an operational standpoint, you know, our technologies are tree trimming and the kind of things we do to maintain our reliability. Those kind of things are the things we're really trying to focus on going forward.
Vince, is your AMI consulting in line 170?
No. David, do you know off the top of your head which one it was in?
Yeah,
We
consulting.
moved it once or twice.
It's in our consulting.
It is?
I think so. Right there real quick. There.
Yeah, it is. You're right,
It's in
Scott.
consulting.
Yeah, $125,000 of AMI is included in the $911,000. I said 745 for KYMEA. I misspoke. It was 760,000. So the AMI business case is the other big piece there.
got the very next line is 175, legal and accounting, and that drops way off.
Yeah, a lot of the legal and accounting fees had been going toward specifically the KU settlement and those type of things. And we had kind of broke out the legal and accounting part of the consulting fees with KYMEA versus the other. But really, now we're in a situation where those folks are working for KYMEA and we get a bill from KYMEA for the consulting fees in general. So we just thought it was a little clearer rather than playing this shell game where we went back and forth. Kind of gives you a better picture, I think, of what you're actually spending there for this consulting. The other legal and accounting and those kind of things are in there are still for your reviews of the KU contract and reviews that we have to do for SEPA and different things like that. But those are certainly small compared to the others.
Brandon does our load forecast every year.
Yeah, he does our load forecast. We kept the money in there for our load forecast even past 18-19, even though we have to do a load forecast right now for KU, but we'll continue to have to do a load forecast just for our own knowledge. It'll probably be, when we get to it, it'll be rolled into some KYMEA things, and it'll actually be done on a group for all those different cities, and probably we'll just pay a piece of that. And we'll see as we get a little closer to that, but right now it is our load forecast, which is required by the KU contract, is included in those. If you don't have any question on those, I'll let David go to his, but I'll be happy to answer anything that comes up here.
I'd just like to talk briefly from a high level on page 23, just to talk about how the electric division looks when we look at the statement of revenue, expenses, and change in net position that we just went over on page 24. Look at page 23. We are budgeting all 5 years. We have the amount of estimated kilowatt hours that we sell and the customers. We just have that flat. So that's why you see every year that remains flat. We don't have any power cost adjustment put in there. For months now, we've had a negative power cost adjustment, which is a credit to our customers' bill, a reduction in their bill. So any power cost adjustment we receive through the bill, we'll bill it, we'll be charged it, or give them a credit. So it's essentially offsets completely. So I just wanted to point that out on the assumptions used to get to this operating revenue. When you add up all of the expenses of the electric division, to get that number, you lines 25, 30, and 95. For this first year, 2017, that's $60,700,000. I just wanted to point out the sheer size of this power cost decision. That's power cost alone at $49 million is 82% of the total electric budget. So this year, and what we're going to talk about at 5 o'clock with public hearing regarding rate increases, we have about an 8.5% increase coming from KU this year, which is just right at $4.6 million. So you can imagine, not to overpromise and underdeliver on this power supply study, but if you could at least, if for potential to at least hold power costs flat over a decade, I mean, you're looking at $40 to $50 million in savings to this community. So it's a huge thing to looking forward. So I hope that works out the way it's planned. I'd like to focus on line 100 and lines 105. When you take your increase in net position, that's our revenue that outpaces our expenses, just under $713,000. When you add to that our depreciation, that's a non-cash expense that's been recognized above. That's $2.7 million, almost $2.8 million. I just want to point out that what we plan to be able to bring in 17 plus the depreciation is about what we will be estimated to spend on capital improvements on line 140. So any of the debt repayment that we have for the administration building and any other of the essentially that will pay for the general capital additions as well. So just want to make a point that we're essentially cash-wise about breaking even with the electric division this year. You can see line 175, the estimated or projected cash and investment reserves do increase year over year, but we're meeting our minimum cash reserve each year and are moving closer and in 3 out of the 5 years meet the recommended minimum cash reserve. Now, as we talked about with water, when you were to include the deficit in water, that puts a little pressure on electric, but we're continuing to pay attention to that. make sure that we, for the next decade, try to turn that around. But really, that's the high level. The only thing that we have, the debt that's truly incurred from the electric is the administration building. Now, electric revenue is pledged for all the bonds, but when we look at just separating what's water, what's electric projects, really the admin building is only electric debt. So that's really a brief summary of overall, but be glad to answer any questions you may have. I passed out the additional charts that we have for the electric and water division. It says page 4 and 5 on it. It's kind of an addition to the other information we had. I wanted to point out on page 5, the very top chart, which just is an example of the bars represent the wholesale power cost over the last decade, and then the kilowatt hours purchased from KU shows that as wholesale power costs continue to increase, the usage of our customers continue to decrease. Just once again, just pointing out how our cost per kilowatt hour sold in that second chart below, just showing how that's continued to increase over time. But I just wanted to point that out. And that's pretty much where we are with the electric.
On page 6 in the executive summary, there's a wholesale power cost chart. It gets us up north of 7 cents kilowatt hour by 2017. Do we expect that curve to shift dramatically come 2019? And do we have any projections as to how that shift is going to happen?
We would expect in 2019 that the increases we've seen with KU obviously would not happen. We expect it to flatten out more.
So what do you think? Do we think it'll flatten out, or do we think we'll drop south of that KU number?
We'll see when the actual cost of some of the contracts. I'm confident we'll be fairly
On par.
flat. It depending on AMI decisions, some of those kind of things. I don't know if a rate decrease would be in the works or not. It could be. We're just a little bit ahead of where once we get some of these contracts ironed down, we ought to have a better idea but I'm confident that it will be much better than what we've seen.
Well, that 7 cent number is interesting because that gets us at that payback, 15-year payback number for solar.
Mm-hmm.
So that gives us 15 years payback at 7 cents a kilowatt hour, and then for any installed solar, free power for 15 to 30, 35 years after that.
Does that conclude the water and electric? Okay. Well, we have lots and lots of time here.
Well, we can continue on with the schedule. We're ready to go with the rest of these.
That was going to be my next
departments.
question. If any of the items that were planned for tomorrow, if they're prepared to go ahead.
Yes, sir. We may get done today.
Okay, well, the next one I'm on the agenda I'm looking at is General Administrative and Board of Directors. It's David and Glenn.
I'll be glad to. I'd like to start on page 29, looking at the administrative overhead by department. We get this yesterday, just discussing how the budget flows. But we look at a set of 16 allocation factors that we've applied to these support departments to be able to match up what's happening in real world to allocating cost to each of the divisions. I'll go ahead and walk through them just for those that might be viewing in on this and others that are here today. When we talk about our overhead and administrative departments, we're talking about our administration, our board of directors, our customer service, finance department, fleet services, human resources, information technology, meter reading, safety department, and our support services. So on page 29 just shows how the total cost is allocated to the three different main divisions of the company. And then in total, you can see those totals will tie right back to the statement of revenue expense and changing that position at the bottom to show what cost is allocated to each division. But looking at page 30, the very first one we'll go over is what we just have labeled as a general section. It's kind of a catch-all for items that aren't just able to be specifically identified to those other departments. Looking at page 30, I'm going to look at the fourth column of numbers, the budget 16-17. This includes depreciation for general, which mainly is going to be, you'll see an increase with our administrative department. This is all items that are non-electric water cable. So we have depreciation ranging from $600,000 up to $800,000 through the 5-year budget. Legal and accounting is just general legal and accounting items that come up that for whatever might come along during that year. Corporate insurance, that is the general liability and all the different types of insurances that we have as a company. That insurance is allocated across the 3 divisions. Public information, which needs to be changed. Line 70, cash contribution to the city. We currently have a $25,000 payment we make for the flood wall. That was a 20-year commitment. It was going to be $500,000 through the year 2017. So we're just getting ready to make in 16-17, we'll make the last of that 20-year payments for that. And then we have the use of city asset fee and also the rent on the downtown office. Clubhouse, that's usually general repairs and maintenance that is required to keep the clubhouse up on line 75 of $10,000 a year, whether it be vinyl, flooring, any repairs and maintenance that are needed. That seems to be throughout time. Other revenue is the other parts of the general section, and this is just overall general amount. You can see on line 125 is our interest income. Miscellaneous collections and fees that we have are also in the other revenue sections. So like I say, this is mainly just a group of expenses that we don't attribute to any single department we call as general, ranging from $3.5 to $1.3 to $1.4 million over the 5-year period. That's allocated about evenly between electric and water, each at 29.5%, and then cable gets almost 41% of those amounts. So I'll be glad to answer any questions about the general expenses or income that you may have. If not, I'll just keep the good times rolling here on line 31 with the administrative department. The administrative payroll, this is going to be your executive staff and support staff for the administration. Employee benefits are also related. Made a comment yesterday about how those are allocated. The actual Social Security Medicare cost, that 7.65% that the company pays on every employee is linked directly within this budget. And also the KRS contribution. We know what wages will be paid, we know the rate, so that is also directly attributed to each amount of payroll. When we have the unemployment amount we pay, the health insurance amounts we pay, and also life insurance are allocated on the number of employees. You can imagine health insurance at different plans for different people. It's just hard to allocate that exactly to whether it's a family plan, single plan, family, parent plus child. So we just allocate those on the number of employees. Trying to think of anything else that sticks out on this as we have dues and subscriptions, continue education. I know throughout this administrative department and also electric, water, cable, we have individuals with professional licenses that must be kept and have continuing education requirements for those. And also all of our training is included in that continuing education number as well. On line 20, I'm showing there, $18,500 a year. The other thing that sticks out is the main expense on this is the utility expense on line 85, around $165,000 a year for all of the utilities used by the administrative departments. And then our interest expense on line 100, which is mainly due to the administration building. Those expenses for administration are allocated at 38.4% electric, just at almost 29% water, and 33% cable.
I had a question there, David, on postage and printing.
Yes.
It only appears in 1 year.
We actually, under the customer service department is where we have budgeted most of, and just for years, it's always kind of fallen under the customer service department. So in this particular year, we have an estimated year-to-date of 114.
So we've had some actual charges hit in Department 4051.
Most people will code, when we code the expenses, there was just some expense coded directly to administration.
Oh.
Most of it is coded to the customer service
I
department.
see, okay.
So you'll look, if we, on page 33 is where most of the postage and printing budget falls, on page 33, line 50. So that just happen to be some actuals that landed in this fiscal year that we're in currently.
Let's see.
On the page 31, we just went through that, administration. On page 32, we have the board of directors. We have the payroll, step by statute, a maximum of $12,000 a year for a 5-member board. We've got that plus benefits on line 10. Legal accounting, line 20 is Mr. Liebman and his services to the board. Cell phones, and that's pretty much it, with the electric division getting 59%, water getting 10.5%, and cable getting 30.4%. Over, I could keep talking, but I'm sure, I'll let Monique, if you want to, go ahead and talk about our customer service department. I'm just gonna do it.
You go ahead, Tom. Go ahead. I'll talk.
I don't mind at all. Payroll, general administrative, on page 33, looking at customer service. Line 5, see our payroll we have for the period at $790,000 year 1. Their employee benefits in line 10. Continuing education on line 20 is our is all the training continuing ed. Line 25, our customer records and collections. About half of that is our actual billing of our customers, around $250,000 a year for billing. And then we actually have in that as well bad debt collections, our service that we hire out to collect bad debt. We spoke about bad debt yesterday. I think it's 0.2% that we have out of our $100 million in projected revenue on line 30 of $200,000 a year. That's something that the auditors pay close attention to each year, always making sure that we're setting aside enough of our reserve for bad debt reserve, and we've had no problem there. Line 45, also supplies. This is where most of the office supplies are budgeted for the downtown office and NOC. Line 50, postage and printing, as we just talked about. This is mainly the mail machine that we have, and any other FedEx or any other types of packages that need to be sent out through the year. I'll go ahead and defer to Monique on, I believe, on line 60 is consulting. Is that?
Yes.
Yeah, that one.
The consulting that we're looking at is, we're requesting that additional fund to develop and distribute an RFP to complete a customer satisfaction survey that's specifically geared to customer improvement and customer satisfaction, and using that information that's obtained there to identify specific areas that need improvement and implement specific policies and procedures and training to coach to those specific targets. And that will also allow us to include our current SureTel system training and setting metrics and targets and objectives to coach to and train to improve the customer service and the customer service experience at the downtown office.
Is that a one-off experience, or are we going to be getting a system that will be able to continually survey customer satisfaction levels?
The initial that we're requesting, the $15,000, that is for the initial survey and all of the information that comes with that, the metrics and everything obtained from that, the total number of customers contacted, specific questioning, and in order for us to target and look at the specific pain points and improve it in those areas. And generally, most call centers or anybody that does any kind of customer service survey, they usually do it anywhere from every 3 to 5 years, just to see, unless there are some significant changes that they're looking to see how they were impacted. So we're looking at doing this initially this year and then moving forward approximately every 3 years.
So would that money include enough to also cover a follow-up after any improvements are put in place to actually gauge our success rate?
I am not sure at this particular time. I'm looking at several different companies now. I've already met with one that has done some work for the plant board in the past to see how much we can get with that amount of money and see what they're talking about with regard to follow-up and going back and gauging if the things that we have put in place have made a significant improvement from a customer perspective.
The employees benefit almost doubled between 15-16 and 16-17. Is that correct?
What line are you looking at?
In the past, we had, this is another,
Oh, okay.
it's hard to compare 14, 15, 15, 16 to the next 5 years. Part of that is the way that the budget was presented. In the past, all employee benefits would be put in and allocated on a pretty general allocation factor. Now we have got the employment payroll taxes. The payroll taxes and the KRS benefit are linked directly to the employee, and also we've more closely allocated just on the number of employees, the healthcare, life insurance, and also the unemployment. So the difference is not as extreme as it shows, and this will line out over the few years. It's the presentation is why it looks so large. But when you look at our fringe benefits, about 60% of payroll, so that stays about the same throughout time. When you put about 30% of that 60 is KRS and payroll taxes. The other thing, interest, you might say interest in customer service on line 70. That is the interest we must pay to interest on customer deposits. PSC puts out a rate every January 1st that we have to follow for that current calendar year. And so this was on the plans for the finance department. It's been on for us to go through and really try to work. We had a lot of unclaimed customer deposits. And I give Katrina was heading up the project with a lot of help from customer service, and have managed to really, we're up to date on reporting all unclaimed property, unclaimed deposits to all localities. That stretched over many different states. And Katrina and customer service did a great job of getting that in line. So the amount of interest we have is interest that just on deposits that are held by current customers. So we've cleaned that up substantially. But really, that's pretty much the summary of customer service. They're allocated mainly at, we have 37.3 to electric, almost 18 to water, and almost 45% of that to cable. And most of that reason cable gets a lot of it is the number of lines of business that they have, number of calls related to cable. There was one change that I'd like to bring to your attention. It's on this handout that Katrina passed out that showed the changes.
It's not.
It's actually.
I thought it would be tomorrow.
We're ahead of ourselves. We thought we were going to hand this to. We were trying to give this update as we covered the sections, but there is actually a promotion that would like to ask to be included on the final draft of the budget. So this would be included on page 19 under the employee job reclassification and raises. It's not there now, but this would be a request to move a CSR 3 to a customer service supervisor. And I can let you talk a little bit more about that.
What we're looking at is, and not backfilling a position, but so we would not increase our employee head count, but moving a CSR 3 to a supervisor position to better balance out the responsibilities and the task duties of the current supervisor. We have 4 employees that are actually eligible at the CSR3 level, so basically the difference between their average salary that they're being paid right now and moving them to a minimum customer service supervisor position rate of 112 would be approximately $12,982. And this is basically just to assist with balancing out, like I said, the responsibilities and the workload of the current supervisor with those 16 employees.
And I'm not sure if this is the right part of the budget, but if we wanted to improve software for the website, for customer service, for cable, for all of it, would that fall into this page or a different page?
We usually put all the software into the IT department.
Oh, okay, so
There
we're
were some
getting to that.
specifically related to electric, water, cable that were mainly their distinct systems, but those type of general would be IT.
Okay.
And we, I know they always budget amounts for software.
So we're coming to it. Okay.
Yes, ma'am. While we're talking about additional employees, I think it's something worth pointing out, and it's good, I think, for our customers to hear as well. I know in the finance department last year, we had an employee left, relocated out of state, and we did what we could to absorb the additional work and not rehire that position. I know early in this fiscal year as well, there was an employee in customer service that left for another job, and that position was not refilled, trying to work on cutting labor costs. I know there was an executive assistant position that was left for another out-of-state, out-of-location, and that was not hired as well. So that is something that, as through natural attrition, as people are leaving, that we're having that discussion of to really look at, do we need or can we do something different? Can crews be redistributed? I know we're going to have a lot of retirements coming up, and that's something that electric, water, cable, and administration, I just want to bring to your attention that it's a discussion when there is a change to look at, is there a way that we can work to at least try to keep payroll under control. So I just want to point that out since we're talking about it. For no more customer service related, move on to the finance department on page 34. We've got 6 employees on line 5, looking at the 4th column of numbers for this next year. A little over $378,000 in total payroll for the period, with benefits of just under $180,000. Dues and subscriptions, we have some payroll updates we receive. There's a CFO controller update we receive, and also other different things just to kind of keep us in line with what's going on and what's changing. Line 20, our continuing education is, Katrina and I both have our certificate for a certified public accountant's license. We have 30 hours a year we must have to keep that up. So that includes that plus other payroll updates and other things that we also have staff do to keep their skills to the top of their game. On line 35 general, there are 2 safes that we're looking to purchase for the transfer to the new building, dealing with cash handling. And then the next thing, line 50, is our legal and accounting is the external audit. So that's the large number you see there. But we're allocating the finance department at 39% electric, almost 27% water, and 34% cable. But pretty most of it's audit and payroll.
What accounts for the transition between the 15-16 budget and what we've got for estimate and budget and the trend line forward for payroll and employee expenses? You said you lost the 1 FTE, but it looks like payroll took a dive down and benefits took a dive up.
Part of the, so we have the actual 15 in the first column against the budget, and that budget 15 we have to 16. So you can see we're down almost over 40,000 in payroll and budget to actual for this current fiscal year. That employee benefits, that is just, we've taken 10 months, annualized the April numbers. So it's possible that estimated year to date is just an annualized number. So I don't, it could change.
But you also see a change in the trend, even looking forward 17, 18, and 19, where the benefits are rising and the
Part of
actual
that is-
payroll number came down.
The contribution rate for KRS has changed from 17.06 to 18.68. So that's the main push. It's for every dollar the company will pay in 18.68 cents on every dollar.
I think also on line 5, the estimated year-to-date, David, does that not reflect the employee that moved out of state?
It does.
Was that in this year?
We thought we had budgeted 420, and we're estimating just taking the 23 payrolls, annualizing out to the 26 through the year. So that shows us being down over 43,000. With the compensation plan accounting for the rest of the changes throughout the 5 years. No questions of finance. If you want to, Mark Redmond's over our support services and fleet services, so we might just go ahead and hit them both at the same time since you're here. So look at the line, page 35.
Well, I was actually going to go over to capital additions, vehicles. Our department in support service or fleet services, we do not decide how vehicles are used. We just replace them once they're in the fleet. And so the department's still advised because that's part of their management there of their fleet. So if you turn to page 20, you'll see on line 135, 140, and 145. Give you a moment there. Those are cable replacements to the fleet, bucket truck and a couple pickup trucks there. Those vehicles, they're past the fleet replacement policy. Some in quite a few miles there. The first one's tracked in hours. It's about 4,000 miles past what the policy says. And we're starting to see higher maintenance because of it. So that's why it's in there to replace as well. You can move over to page 21 and you'll see there's an electric vehicle there on line 380. And that's a utility body truck. I think that thing is, it's about 13, 14 years old. It's got about 200,000 miles or something like that on it. And it's getting past its life. We've kept it well past the policy when we were getting good use out of it. But now, maintenance goes up as things get older. So you're kind of always looking for the tipping point there, what that is.
I gave them some pictures too of the 17 replacements. They've got those too.
Yeah, okay, so that kind of gives you an idea what it looks like. It's hard to just a verbal description sometimes. If you move on over to page 22, you can see the fifth out of the 5 vehicles, line 600 there, crane truck for the water department. And again, it's just replacing one that I think is about 18 years old. We've kind of kept it well past on its life there. And I think in the last couple of years we spent about $10,000 on it, and we still got an 18-year-old vehicle. So we want to go ahead and replace that as part of the policy there. If there's any questions about that. Okay. Well, let's...
I had a question back on page 20.
Yes.
I think this is your part, the service center warehouse roof replacement.
Yeah.
That's the garage where you take trucks in and work on them?
No, that is the operations center. It's actually right in front of the garage facility you mentioned there.
Oh.
It's where we have the employee Christmas get together
Right, okay.
there, and that's the big warehouse there. That's that
Yep.
roof on that building.
Is that the roof that we had repaired this year?
No,
no?
it's the roof we repaired or replaced this year is attached to that building. It's over
Okay.
the office section. It was having
it's over that
multiple
little front.
leaks. And so this would be the actual warehouse roof, much larger roof.
Okay, and is it a couple stories high?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, one thing I was thinking about is that would be a possible location for solar. If we put a standing ridge roof on there, that you could attach solar right onto it, and I think it's high enough that there aren't any trees that shade it. Is it?
No, I don't
Or-
believe so.
Okay. Well, I was wondering if we could add something into the budget for considering that.
That's something I could look at if that's the board's pleasure. everything. I mean.
Do we even know what roofing system we're putting on yet? Are we already planning for a standing ridge roof system?
Yes, it would be a standing roof.
Standing ridge though?
Mhm. Yeah, and that's exactly what we put on the office attachment as well. Yeah, so that's something to be looked at and priced up.
Yeah, that's on there for 2018, which would work out nicely with
Yeah.
May 1st, 2019.
So then it sounds like we're already in line. We've already got a standing ridge roof going on there, so we're good to go, right?
Yeah, that's the plan, is to put that same type of roofing system there.
Okay.
Is there any other questions? All right, let's move on over to page 35.
Well, I had one question on
Yes.
the trucks that you're replacing. Are there any advances in, say, plug-in electric or electric gasoline combinations, anything like that for replacing
like
those?
a hybrid or something like
Yeah.
that. We're actively looking at those things. We have been discovering about our garage staff. We employ those people, or since we don't outsource that. And so we're trying to figure out training, how we can do that. We need to do that before. And a couple things we were trying to do is be a Ford and a GM authorized warranty dealer. That way we can achieve training through them on their product. And we need to do that before, and we need to gear up. And then so we're working on that. We're kind of waiting on GM and Ford right now. It's a process. They're large companies, and I guess they take a while. That's the first step in that direction. In these vehicles, I'm not sure that would be the best option right now. But there are vehicles in the 5-year plan that, as we go through, I think are going to be good.
Okay.
Good
So you're
spots
thinking
for
about
those.
it. That's good.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. It takes a while to get ready for stuff like that, so we can't wait until then. We got to do it now. So we're working on those things. Okay.
Ben, can you talk for a second? Scott Hudson. Scott, why don't you come to the front table? We tried a hybrid bucket truck. We had one in town for a week or so that we actually put out in the field. So Scott can.
Was that this year?
No, it was a couple of years ago.
Yeah, when they come out with, I think it's the second year after they come out with, a battery operated bucket truck, we actually got our hands on one to try for a couple of weeks. And of course that's first generation, and there was quite a few utility companies that used them up north, bottom. AEP was one of them, not AEP, AMP, I'm sorry, because that's out of Ohio. It was AMP, and there was a contractor, Vectran, I believe. They're out of up north. And the problems they had with theirs is, of course, during the winter months, snow, ice, all those kind of things, and they had problems with those kind of trucks. They wouldn't run, or the battery would run dead. They had issues. Florida Power and Light has had some of them, and of course, like in Florida, the sea salt air, for whatever reason they've had, it's still I think it's a learning curve. I don't see as many of them out there now as I used to, as far as stuff that comes across. We get weekly emails from truck vendors about this or that, and you used to see a bunch of them about electric bucket trucks, but I don't see a whole lot of them. And the problem we ran into, the one we had here, and this is what a lot of them say, if you have flat terrain, they seem to do real well. But when you have hilly areas, because it's a pull, those trucks, like our bucket truck, our small bucket truck, once the truck comes in, you put material on it, it weighs right at 20,000 pounds. The bigger bucket trucks are rated for over 33 to 36,000 pounds. So that's a lot of weight, and you're looking at batteries trying to go up and down these grades, because Frankfort is very hilly if people won't think about it. And so the batteries don't, you still automatically, once the battery gets to a certain point, you switch over to diesel anyway. So the batteries don't last as long. They didn't last that long here in Frankfort. Now, we can still look at, see what everybody else is doing, but I haven't heard of a lot of people doing a lot of stuff like that right now.
Well, there's not a great advantage to electric anyway. If you have to generate electricity to charge a battery, it's a kind of a wash.
Right.
It ends up being a wash anyway, as far as savings are concerned.
Yeah. So, you know, that people's, you know, I've read and heard stories, but it's, you know, here in the last little bit, I haven't really heard a whole lot about electric bucket trucks. Like when they first come out, everybody said this is the greatest thing, and they've all kind of just slid off the radar a little bit now, so.
Mark, I know 2 or 3 years ago, we were following hybrid pickup trucks on the state price contract, and I think we were just about to pull the trigger, and then the hybrid pickup trucks weren't on the state price contract anymore. What's the latest on?
Yeah, it's kind of odd. Some of the hybrid vehicles were pretty reliable, and in this past year, or just a month or two ago, I was looking, and the only hybrid vehicle I could find on the state price contract was actually a Toyota Camry. And then just a couple of years ago, there were several on there. Escapes was something that there was on there that comes to mind. And then this last year, one of the dealers told me, said the state only asked for one. So I don't know. I don't know what caused that, you know, and maybe this year it'll be different. So it was kind of odd, you know. I was surprised to see that when I looked out there. We did look at lots of small vehicles and stuff like that. And, you know, the last several years especially, the departments, a lot of their vehicles, they bought quite a bit lighter than they used to. Things that we do have changed, I guess, in their workload, and they have bought lighter vehicles that are more efficient, but not hybrids, but still much more efficient than we used to have. So, but I don't know what's caused the state to really not have one hybrid. I reached out to a couple of Ford dealerships to ask them. Maybe I was just not seeing it. It's hard to look at, a lot to read, and but they just didn't really respond about it. So
We'll continue to look for opportunities on improved fuel efficiency and more green energy vehicles. And if the board would like us to, you know, purchase one, we absolutely will, but we'll continue to, you know, search out opportunities to fit some of those vehicles in our fleet.
I think continuing the evaluation is a good idea, and, you know, what makes sense.
Yeah, I'd be interested to know if something catches your eye and you think, you know, I'm interested to know about it.
Yeah. Well, that's why we're working on the education part, you know, knowing how to, we'll have to have certain specialized tools, you know, that are, so that our employees are safe, you know. And so we're trying to get ready there because we feel confident that there's probably it's not going away. It's going to get more and more prevalent probably, so.
Okay, good.
Question. Is there not any other questions? I'll go over to page 35.
Okay. 5 employees. Page 35, looking at fleet services. This is our, in other words, we call it garage. Doing all of our repairs on most of our equipment in-house. We'll have 5 payroll of the budget year 16-17, just over $246,000 with employee benefits of $122,000. And I'll let Mark talk to some of the other areas there.
Yeah. Move down to line 50. That's next to the largest line in the fleet services budget, and that's auto and truck repairs, what it's called. And that's everything you can think of that you would need to repair or replace on a vehicle, from tires to hoses to water pumps, things, light bulbs, all kinds of things. So that's everything except for fuel is in that number right there. In the past, we used several different services to help us do the best repair on vehicles that we can. And so if you move up to line 30, you'll see other services. In the past, we put all those costs in that repair cost. We're kind of trying to separate out some of those so we can see what actual are physical pieces and what might be just the service. And the service that I mentioned are things like you look in there and it says the book says to do it this, fix it like this, take off all this stuff and repair this. But then mechanics put in there and they said, well, you know what, the computer says it's this, but there's a flaw there. And it keeps you from spending and wasting a lot of money by being able to see those things in there and by taking advantage of someone else's maybe mistake or something they didn't know. So we kind of separated some of that stuff out to tell what's hardware, what's not. And we moved down to line 50, gas and oil. That's the biggest line. But if you look at 15 and 16, it's about 150,000, something less. Most of that is just due to fuel cost less right now. Some of it's inefficiency, but negligible compared to the cost of fuel right now is low. At one point, I had it about 50,000 more because you just don't know what's going to happen. But at the same time, we don't want to hold $50,000 that someone might be needed somewhere else in the company. So we put it right down close to where we hope it'll be. You know, we just don't have a crystal ball. Maybe fuel will stay cheap. Maybe it won't. And we call it cheap now, but used to we thought that's pretty expensive. But so I felt like that was a good number right there, without tying up money that someone else might need in another area.
You got 6 employees there?
5.
5.
You know, in the future, we expect a retirement in the next year or so, and it's a good possibility we're not going to replace that employee. That's kind of the plan.
Well, now you just hired one, right?
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So you got 4 mechanics and a supervisor?
Yes, that's correct. Any other questions?
So those fleet services are allocated 43% to electric, 36% to water, and almost 21% to cable. Marks over also our support services department on page 40. I'll let you roll on there.
So line 5 there, you can see the payroll. That would be 14 employees that do various jobs to support the water, electric, and cable telecom services, from groundskeeping to stock and inventory, some dispatching services, custodial, and locating services for all 3. You can see the benefits there on line 10. Moving down to line 35 is probably one of the largest items in this area here. And about 35 to 40% of this is maintenance agreements and service contracts. Right now we have 8 buildings that we're maintaining, with another one coming online this summer and another one late or probably first of next year, something like that. And so these, all this money paints them, replaces doors, windows, maintains floors, air conditioning units, gates, those automatic gates in several locations. All these kinds of things, just like you have at your home. Maintenance is a big issue on your home. It's the same way on all of our buildings. We have a few extra things like you wouldn't have in a home. So a lot of different things in this one here. Even pest control is another one that I didn't mention. And so just a whole lot of repair goes on to maintain our buildings and stuff like that.
Is pest control mainly like rats? Or?
No, all the buildings have it. I mean, no, it's most likely at the downtown office. It would be things that pests that come in back in cable boxes. Just a lot of times when you have a lot of people together, or public, that you have to control the pest. So
Use cheap fish.
That's right.
yeah. I don't know if that answers your question. Gosh, I hope we don't have rats. Yeah, it's mainly bugs, pest control, of that nature.
You might want to take a look at the flag at the clubhouse.
Okay. Yeah. That facility is kind of construction zone. We're not there as much as we used to be, but we'll definitely.
It's not bad. But
yeah, well, we don't want to
look at it.
We do. Thank you, Tom. Is there any other things about that? If there's not, you move on down to line 50 there. It's a pretty big item too, and that's just a whole lot of things like paper supplies and rugs that go in all the buildings that keep people from slipping as they come in and during inclement weather. just a ton of things like that. Like I said, right now we have 8 buildings we're trying to maintain. So we'll increase that a little bit. And well, actually, I guess net we won't, but it's a lot of stuff there to maintain our buildings and stuff that we need. Like I said, paintbrushes around. If there's any questions about that.
Was lawn maintenance in here somewhere?
Yes.
Did I miss it?
That kind of maintenance would be under line 35, repairs and maintenance. That's where we're maintaining our lawnmower, not our lawnmowers, but our maintenance crews are doing all kinds. The people that mow grass and things of that nature also do building maintenance. So,
I see.
yes, this is all part of that. Even salt in the wintertime might go underneath these numbers here to make our driveways and things like that safe. But yeah, lawn maintenance is under these numbers.
Does that go into the payroll for those employees?
Yeah.
Any of the fuel would be under the fuel under fleet services?
Yeah. So,
And I noticed on a few different schedules that cell phones come up. Do we have one big cell phone contract with AT&T?
Verizon Wireless.
Oh, okay.
Made a change 2 or 3 years ago. We had AT&T and looked at the numbers, and it was quite a significant savings. And the board voted to go with AT&T.
Oh, you
So
are?
we do have a blanket contract that services all departments.
So you were with Verizon but went with AT&T now?
We went from AT&T, now with Verizon.
Oh, okay.
Y'all want to take a little recess here, and then we can reconvene and probably finish up the budget review today, most likely, I think. Let's take a 10-minute break here. Right, we are reconvening. I think the next subject is human resources. Diane.
That's right, thank you. On line 5, under payroll, we have 3 full-time employees.
What page are we on?
And it's on page 36, I'm sorry. I'll just hit a few lines and be happy to answer any questions that you might have. On line 15, under dues and subscription, this includes dues for memberships, like for the Society for Human Resource Management and the Kentucky Public Human Resource Association, for the 3 employees in the department. It helps us keep up with changes in employment-related regulations and laws and keep up with best practices. Under line 20, continuing education, I wanted to point out that this includes some company-wide training, some EEO training for all employees with an outside consultant, and company-wide tuition reimbursement. It is not just for the 3 individuals. About half of that, in fact, are those 2 other components. And then for line 25, employee activity, one thing that we added, which was less than $3,000, is to have a monthly get-together for the employees whose birthday is that month, and to have them maybe come to the new building once the new building's ready, and just have recognition of their birthday, all the employees for that month, with the general manager and the HR, just to have more individual contact with employees. Let's see, under line 50, publishing, this is primarily advertising for job openings. I noticed the actual for, I believe, fiscal year 14 and 15 was almost $19,000, and this year we have been under budget, looks like. And that really depends on the job openings that we have and how broadly we need to recruit. And if we need to recruit in some specialty areas like engineering or IT, and try to reach different skill levels of employees. Under, let's see, line 70, consulting. This includes the consulting for the frozen retirement plan, the rewriting of the plan document, and hopefully the termination of that plan that's going on right now with Stoll Keenan Ogden's help. It also includes funds in case we need to bring someone in as a consultant for an investigation or something that we really don't now anticipate happening, but if it would happen, we have utilized that in the past to have an outside expert come in for an employment-related investigation. So we've included funds under consulting for that. And that's all. And we'd be happy to answer any questions.
I think we have our human resources allocated based on the number of employees. Electric at 27.27% allocation, water at just over 26%, and cable at just under 46%.
Well, nobody has anything for Diane, we move on to IT. Casey.
I think we're on page 37. Right. Okay. Most of our stuff is pretty flat from over the last 2 to 3 years. We've, if you notice in the budgeted amount for this year, there's a $842,000. We're not going to reach that just because we had in there a position for broadband security person that we haven't hired, trying to save money. The only real capital items that we have that are different from our normal are some software. This new software called Nutanix that will allow us to do virtualization of machines, storage, and networking. And that's on page 21, I'm sorry. We also have Dell SecureWorks.
Are you on page 21 right now?
Yeah, sorry, I jumped on you there.
Line
5, 10, 15, and 20. So the Nutanix is the new virtualization platform. The Dell SecureWorks software is it's actually a managed service provider, a security service provider that will help us maintain our security compliance and HIPAA security compliances, and help us make some improvements across our security footprint. And Dell Rapid Recovery is some new backup software that we're purchasing in conjunction with the Nutanix. They're sort of tied together as far as integrate well with each other for backup and recovery.
Does that tie into there was an audit done earlier in this year that of.
The Dell
where we-
Secure Works, yes.
Yeah.
Well, so that service will help us out in certain of those deficiencies that we had as far as overall monitoring and flagging of any suspicious activity or anything like that. Yes.
And so what line item and page is that?
That was 21, line item 510. Yes.
Oh, okay.
So the Nutanix, that 60 grand in 2017, is that an implementation cost, or is that going to be a recurring license fee?
No, that's the implementation cost.
Okay, and so what are our
For a server
ongoing license
cluster.
fees going to look like?
Sorry.
What are our ongoing license fees going to look like?
I don't have that information handy.
I guess, yeah.
I mean, is that, so you said it was storage and
Yeah, it's
virtual system management?
An appliance platform that virtualizes the CPU, the compute, the memory, the storage, and the networking all in one platform.
So do we have an existing hypervisor and virtualization platform now that we're migrating from?
Yeah, so we have a number of systems over on VMware today, and most of that is going to slowly move over to the Nutanix platform.
I see. And for 60 grand, I mean, what better operational experience do we think we're getting?
But it's supposed to make better use of the compute and tying the storage in with the platform, as opposed to with VMware, we had to go off to a SAN to get that data, and while performance was good, it's not quite as good as being on the appliance itself. So we're hoping to see some improvements there.
So is Nutanix, is it just a management platform, or it has its own hypervisor?
It has its own hypervisor.
And so then it works with generic storage management, or it's sitting on top of Dell StorageWorks, or?
It works. It functions as an all-in-one appliance. The hypervisor is called Acropolis, I believe is what it's called, and it's incremental. So you bring in additional appliance when you need more compute storage. So it grows well.
Does it give you the ability to manage your cloud resources as well, or just?
No, just the local.
Did you guys look at any of the open source alternatives to pursue any of the hypervisor virtual management stuff? None of the OpenStack equipment? No.
Yeah, we just looked. Mostly we were ramping up our VMware until we came across this and really evaluated what we'd be able to get out of it for the cost, and it really seems to compare favorably on cost alone.
So how much of that 60,000 is our consulting resources, and how much of it's actual software and hardware costs?
That's the equipment itself.
That's the physical equipment. So when will we start seeing the license fees for the Nutanix?
Well, that 60 will include the first batch of licenses. I can't remember the exact number, but once we get into that first amount, again, apologize for not having it, but I don't recall exactly how many licenses that covers us for right away.
Do we have a breakdown of that project somewhere in the detail?
I don't know that there's any more breakdown of that.
You've got the capital on 21, and then the line item detail report is just covering the income and expense side, which we're only expense for IT. There's 2 pages, but those are just hitting on computer expense software, so it's not
broken that out.
There's nothing related to expenses and things.
Right.
But ongoing license fees would be on the income statement, they wouldn't be on the cash.
Right. It would usually fall under software services. So, let's see.
PC hardware we're keeping that unchanged. We're on about a 6-year PC replacement cycle right now. So. Any other questions?
Okay, if not, we ready for meter reading?
Yeah, I only have one thing.
The meter reading department, as you can tell at the bottom of page 38, there is no allocation to cable. This is allocated on the number of meters, electric and water meters, with electric at just over 56.6% and water meters percentage of 43.3. I'm trying to think of how many employees.
Meter readers, total of 7 employees, 6 meter readers, 1 supervisor.
So on line 5, total payroll of just shy of $391,000 for the period. Line 10, employee benefits for 15-16 at just right at $200,000. And we have, like we said, Verizon contract for all the company issued cell phones, line 15. Continuing education for safety and other types of items for meter reading. And then there's meter reading expense on line 25, and I'll let you go into anything you want to talk about.
Okay. That would be the meter reading expense. Okay. The only other thing that we have with regard to meter reading expenses, equipment, is actually lined out on page 21, line 545, the $32,600. It's a replacement for the current Neptune handhelds. We were advised last year that when we were preparing the 2015-16 budget that we would need to purchase new handhelds because the current equipment that we're using will no longer be supported after July, August timeframe of this year. So that information was forecasted in last year's budget preparation. So we are prepared to put that into this year's budget.
How long did they last? Like 5 years or?
I believe they've had those for, it was about 8 years maybe? I think it's about 8 years.
Okay.
But Neptune has upgraded and they will no longer, I mean, they're still working, but Neptune has upgraded and they won't have parts, replacement parts, software, or anything like that to support them after July or July, August. They haven't given us a definite date yet of that time frame.
Was that meter reading, does that include gasoline and that type thing? Where's that?
It's all under fleet
David?
services, I believe.
Yeah.
It is included in that figure, okay.
It's in
And
fleet
what about
services.
vehicle replacement?
Fleet services.
Yeah, that's all. The fleet services has all the fuel and repairs, mechanical items. On page 34, 35 is where all the fuel would be listed, and then any repairs and maintenance, the same thing with fleet services. And those are allocated out to the main divisions. You'd have to go into more detail at the asset level as far as going to look at a specific meter reading asset to know the details on mileage or how much maintenance was done. But I think it ties in with something else with this department when we talk about looking at a feasibility study for AMI. I think those types of ideas of how that affects meter reading will be part of that study as well. And what changes come up from it and whatever the board decides to do, we'll have all that included going forward. So.
In addition to that, meter reading is also going to be in the same position as some of the other departments with attrition. we do have several people, of the 7 that we have, I believe, in the next 3 years, 4 to 5 of them will be ready for retirement. We actually have one that's actually ready that could go any day. He has indicated that he's not going anywhere, but he can. And then 2 others within the next 3 years will also be eligible for retirement.
Then we have our safety budget on page 39.
They put you last, and you're the most important subject of all.
That's my sentiments exactly. We have 2 employees in the safety department covering the 3 lines of business. I always like, whenever I get an opportunity in front of the board, to remind the board that we're an award-winning safety program, one of the top in the state. We have saved over $120,000 per year from 10 years ago on workers' comp costs. So, I like to bring that up every chance I get. What I've got budgeted is fairly similar to past years. We have HR and safety, some expenses, it's kind of questionable which side they should fall on. So sometimes we go back and forth on that. For instance, under employee welfare, there's a fitness reimbursement. I'm on page 39, line 30. There's a fitness reimbursement that has been in, I think, must have been in the HR budget previously, but we offer employees, right now we're offering employees fitness reimbursements. We reimburse them 75% of the single membership cost up to $200 per year on a gym membership type program. On my you'll see line 35 is administrative. That includes CDL physicals. We have about 60 CDL drivers that have to have CDL physicals at least every 2 years. Vaccinations, we're required to offer hepatitis A and B vaccinations, and then also we pull MBRs and vehicle accident reports for our drivers. Those costs are included in that. Under the safety line 40, there is the drug testing costs fall into that. We have small equipment and supplies. We maintain equipment that is used company-wide, like confined space monitors, some shoring equipment to help the departments with, so they don't have to have so many pieces of shoring equipment. We also have safety video program, training materials, and then every other year we do a ladder inspection, have somebody come in and check our ladders. So that's line 40. Our continuing education on line 20 is like HR, where most of that is company-wide training, CPR, yearly CPR training. We bring in occasional speakers and things like that. So that's where most of our training costs go.
You have drug testing.
Yes, we have pre-employment random drug testing. We follow the DOT regulations for drug testing for safety-sensitive employees. Any other questions?
There's one thing that we just noticed, that we would like to reduce safety expense by $5,000 a year. We currently have safety awards in there that we no longer are issuing. So just want to make it a note that we would like to reduce those. Is that right?
No.
Is there something different?
Well, that was what we were hoping to do. We did have a safety incentive program that we normally that costs about $10,000 to $12,000 a year. OSHA has kind of frowned on incentive programs that reward the lagging indicators, like not having a lost time injury, which was partly what we rewarded employees for. They say that discourages people from reporting their injuries. We beg to differ that our program wasn't, that you didn't get enough money really to not report an injury, but it wasn't really that kind of incentive. But anyway, so what I'm hoping to do is we took away that program, but I would like to be able to institute some kind of program where we can, whether it be a pizza dinner or something like that when we achieve these milestones. So I was hoping to keep that much of it in there. It is a reduction in cost. We were looking at 10 to 12,000, and now we're down to 5,000 on that. So
We need something. If we saved $120,000, certainly we can give them a piece of pizza.
I think so too. All right, thank you.
If we could jump back to cable for a moment, and wanted just to bring up a change, something, just a miscommunication between us on a budget change that I'd like to talk about. If it's okay, it's a good time to do it now. Looking at the cable, I believe it is the capital additions, capital budget for cable, page 20 of the report. In finance, we had misunderstood. We received information about bucket trucks and thought it was just one bucket truck, but actually requesting the replacement of 2 bucket trucks, and wanted to ask for a revision that we would increase to have $145,000 budgeted to replace bucket truck number 334. It's in the packet that I provided of pictures of bucket trucks. So would like to request adding another $145,000 in year 1 to year 17. That's in addition to yesterday we talked about moving the VOD from year 1 to 2. That's a $25,000 change just between years. And also mentioned yesterday the Cable 10 equipment carryover of 30. So those are summarized in this budget changes spreadsheet. I just wanted to bring that up, that requesting the addition of replacement of truck 334 for 145. And other than that,
I don't see 334.
Yeah, you don't. Oh, it was a miscommunication between Katrina and I. It's on this other piece
It's on
of
your
paper
sheet
we
there in
handed
front,
out.
Scott.
Okay,
Yeah.
now on page 20.
She thought I had duplicated, and I didn't communicate clearly enough that I, in fact, was not duplicating the truck. So she was helping me.
Line 135.
that's how we try to cut costs in the finance department. Is we try
It's
to
just eliminate
Want to
stuff.
add an
Yeah.
additional 145.
But that's a change. So we will provide, assuming today might be our last day of budget discussions, give you a final revision list of all the changes. I guess I would just come with what has been proposed. We'll throw it in the budget for final unless we hear anything different. That would be what we present to the board on the 21st for approval.
We've got one other staff that we haven't heard from, Glenn Walter, if he can come to the front table. I want him to discuss what he wants to do in the upcoming year.
In our administrative section, I think this is on page 31, under administration, line 90 on page 31 is public information. These are all expenses related to public information related matters and expenses. The detail of this can also be found in that line item detail spreadsheet we sent out under the administration as well. So 31 is what I have. This is on line 90, just 37.
You'll notice that there's a bit of an increase. The position that we created about 3.5 years ago that I'm sitting in now has had a whopping budget of $2,000 a year for the last few years to help tell our story, communicate to customers, and be a productive part of the community through events. And we have changed that a little bit this year. We've increased, and we're asking for $37,000. And while that is a marked increase from 2000, it's still well below what most companies like us that are municipal utilities throughout the country and through Kentucky ask for. What we're going to try to do is create a for lack of a better word, a mission statement that we're going to try to follow going forward. We've done that in the past, but now a concerted effort to really sort of structure it. And something we've come up with is we want to have a community relations goal of maintaining positive and mutually beneficial relationships with our employees, with our customers, and with the community through open and effective two-way communications and involvement. And we want to strive to accomplish these goals using a lot of different avenues, one of which is to develop and facilitate positive relationships by participating in events and being a part of community-wide programs. This could be school programs, festivals, concerts, and looking at our counterparts around the state, throughout the country. Everyone does that. We have done this some in the past, much in an in-kind way. It's very limited in what we can do and how much opportunity there is out there for us to reach out, be a part, share our brand and what we do for the community. In developing this and getting some actual financial support to, whether it's at festivals with children, giving away information, coloring books, whatever it may be that we go with, we think we want to create what is called a community investment team. That would be myself, the general manager, and a few other diverse people throughout the company in all lines of business that would then, as a requirement to get financial or support of the Frankfort Plant Board through in-kind services, through materials, whatever it may be, that this group would require each group that's asking for this assistance, whether they're wanting water bottles at an event or whatever it may be, they'll have to apply every year. And then this group will go through, look at that particular organization, make sure it meets a certain criteria, whether it's impact on the community, quality of life to the customer, number of people served at the event. And that way we feel like we're getting bang for our buck, but also at the same time reaching out to multiple events, multiple venues to try to tell our story. So as I said, it would be much, like a lot of the races here in town. It would be community events, like summer concert, you're being a part of that in some way, whatever it may be. So we're going to try to work really hard at it. As I said, while it is a large increase, I do realize when you see it on the grand scheme of things, it's not a large amount. But I think it will go a long way in helping us tell our story, to be a part of the community, and strive to be seen in a little bit better light throughout our community with our customers.
Do you have any concrete examples of of an actual engagement? How the money would actually be spent? I mean, were we just talking about trinkets, water bottles?
No, it could be a lot of different things. Sponsorships, for instance. If the summer concert, and Farmers Bank's the current sponsor. But an event like that, if they reach out to us and say, hey, we're looking for help on one particular night, or there's another event that comes up that they're looking for a corporate sponsor, it would be something we would use these funds for if it's deemed proper to do that. One of the things that's in here are scholarships. Many of our like companies throughout the state, both publicly owned, cooperatives, and municipal utilities, they do a scholarship program. Here we would earmark $6,000 total for a scholarship program, $1,000 to a boy and girl at each public high school. As a senior, a one-time gift there would be a criteria set forth with the schools through our group that we create as the investment team that would go through those applications, and we present that one time. It could be for a student that's going into a field of engineering or IT or something that we provide as a service, just to be a part of helping out the community. If that answers your question of what you're talking about.
Yeah, I was pleased to see, our involvement in one of the recent downtown races where we actually had, the water stations out there, and that was
right.
Very nice, and
that's
especially opposed to water bottles.
Right, and that's a classic example of being hamstrung by the budget that I've had in the past. The water department graciously bought one of the water monsters, mine bought the other. It left me with $400 on the year after buying one particular piece of marketing equipment. I mean, you can only do so much with so little. Yeah. But it is we're looking at programs like that, sort of out of the box thinking, where we can be involved. It allows us to tell our story about our product, with our water. So that's something like that we'll be looking to do more of, hopefully.
Yeah. That one seems like a really nice synergy between the community interest in our business lines. Do we have any more concrete discussion written down anywhere about where we think this is going to go?
Other than the fact of sort of the preliminary stuff I've got for you here, no, simply because we haven't had a budget in the past to do it. And once we know what we're working with, we will then work, as a company to formulate our plan and go forward through this next fiscal year.
So then how will the allocations of that 37 happen? Will those come back as individual requests to the board based on the budgeted item, or how will that go?
Well, we've got some individual requests in here now that we wouldn't necessarily, I mean, these were examples of things that we will look into. Some of them, like the summer concert, we may or may not use that $2,500 for the summer concert, but it might be something similar to that. If we're
David,
talking
do we
about
have
that.
these lined out? Where can we find that at?
Under the administration department budget line item detail.
What page?
Page 1.
Of the detail section?
Yeah.
Well,
It's,
the one that their title says.
Administration Department. Yeah. Those are all heavily dependent on the heading. So administration department, page 1, it's under public information expense.
I'm completely lost. Where are we?
Yeah.
We're in the additional package.
In this guy?
Yes.
Okay.
yes.
Oh, right on the very first
The
page.
administration department,
Give us a minute.
I see an electric division, page 1 of 4.
It's gonna be towards the back.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
So you
So
got,
there's
you know where you're
water.
going,
I
yeah.
think so.
You
So we
wanna
go to
minutes
administration.
table,
Oh,
like we did the illustration.
so it's about halfway through.
Well, not quite yet. General
Okay,
department, that's
the
on us,
next one.
almost. There we
Right
go.
there. You got it?
Page 1, there we go.
Next page.
So if you want to-
This is general. You wanna find the one for administration? So this is what he's talking about. You good? Okay.
Okay, so let's.
I think what we did on this last section, I just sort of caught the tail end of a conversation. I think we may have sent this as a PDF, and so Kathy wasn't able to numerically number these, but we'll get that corrected. This whole detail section, we'll get it numerically numbered so we can use this.
I might want to add, though, that it would be downtown Frankfort that would be asking you for your support.
Correct.
For a specific summer concert.
Right.
Event, not the bank.
That's correct. Of course, the Farmers Bank sponsors the concert, so that's how it comes out. But no, and what had happened in years past, one of the years, the downtown Frankfort folks wanted to upgrade one of the particular bands. They needed additional funding. It was going to be, it allowed us, and we tied it in, there was fortunately money earmarked in the cable marketing budget that we were able to use for that. But it got us one night of the concert that we were sort of given top billing with Farmers Bank. We were able to promote video on demand, that sort of thing. So we're looking for any opportunities that we have that we can get out and really sort of show our brand off, whether it's through water, electric, obviously cable does that some already. But as you can see here, we're looking at doing a few different things that aren't selling a product. And I think that's one of the things that gets lost. A lot of times when you think about advertising and marketing, you're thinking about selling a product. Well, electric and water are still things that we need to generate information about. We need to generate some visibility for what we do, how we do it, and why we do it.
So-
And this will give us some much needed tools to do that.
Sure. So 2 things jump out at me. I mean, we've got 2 line items of $10,000 on there for event giveaways and wraps and decals, visibility type things, right? That seems kind of asymmetric as far as, I guess, the stated goal of being engaged in the community.
Correct.
It seems just more visibility and bang for the buck. It strikes me from a marketing perspective that visibility isn't really your best dollar spent. So do we have some rationales why we're spending the 2/3 of our budget on trinkets and wraps?
Absolutely.
Okay.
When you go to an event, and if you've been to seen many downtown, when people are setting up an engagement, a lot of times people are coming up to see what you have there. And if we can utilize that material, that is something that would also be beneficial to the customer. It allows that engagement to talk back and forth. It can be an advertisement on the side that shows our new web portal, how people can go utilize that as part of something we're giving away. A lot of people use junk drives or water bottles, things like this that people in the other industries, whether it's municipals, as I said, or privately owned or whatever it may be, it's a marketing material, an advertising material, but it's also as being a part of the public. When you're out in that scenario, everyone has something that they're giving
It just
away.
strikes me, the comparison between, what we did with, the water distribution for the race versus, a booth with giveaways. You still have that opportunity for engagement, but it's a little more value-add service than.
Oh, yes, but having been out there without these things, or when people, a lot of times what this will go toward too, it might just be one employee with engagement in that, but it might be an event where there's the schools out there and they're asking for things to fill goodie bags, things like that. I mean, there's always an ask, probably up to 40 to 50 a year just for things like this, that people are needing something tangible from the plant board and other businesses.
And my bigger question is not so much that it's a wrong thing to do. It just strikes me that it's 2/3 of the budget we're asking for, and a question whether that allocation, as far as payback and benefit to the community, is as good as we could do.
I think one of the reasons that you see the amount being that much is because when you're talking about multiple events over a fiscal year and needing that many items that you can afford, that we can afford to then turn around and provide to customers at events and stuff, the money doesn't go very far.
I know that one year at the expo, it was a year that the new light bulbs came into existence. We were given, I say we, the plant board, was giving away light bulbs for folks that came up and discussed, the energy savings and things that, with the new fluorescent bulbs. Those bulbs weren't cheap.
Right.
And I guess you gave a couple of thousands away. So, that's an expense that.
Yeah. And that was before my time, but yes, that sort of thing, it helps in engagement.
And I would
and
feel
like I
better
said,
about that type of an expenditure versus a water bottle or a jump driver.
But the water bottles are huge. It helps sell our product. It helps promote the environment if you're not using plastic cups, throwing them on the ground, that sort of thing. And it's also an advertising tool if you're putting a message on there. It's that sort of thing that we're trying to do, is multifaceted, that helps engage the customer, gives the customer something that they can use, and at the same time it allows us to share a message.
Okay, so maybe we don't have enough in there for the human side of it.
That sounds great.
Okay, well, I did
Maybe
have
we
this
should move
on-
some of the 20.
I did have this on my list, this kind of thing, so I'm really glad to see it here. And I was thinking of the summer concert series, but I think what's important is that you're actually engaging a person in some aspect of what the plant board is doing that they don't figure out by other ways.
Some of the stuff we're also looking to do is working with, and the other departments have been great, and we're trying to plan for it. And once we get a better idea of our budget and what we can get out and do, it will give us a little bit better roadmap. But other departments are going to help out, and hopefully we're going to have a presence of a couple of people at these events a lot too, not just the water monster sitting over there where people can get their water distributed to them, but have some of the folks over there talking to them and saying, hey, can we help you out, or maybe having literature materials. Some of the other stuff that's not in here, but like through the APPA or the AWWA, we can go through and buy packets that have coloring books or general information that teachers can use in classes, and incorporate some of the plant board in some of the educational programs that they're utilizing throughout the schools. It's just things we haven't had the opportunity to do in the past because we haven't had the financial resource to do it.
Getting involved, you're talking about the schools, junior achievement is a great way to get the employees involved in getting the word out to the youngsters in school. I know we use that quite a bit here. We have employees who go out and teach, junior achievement classes, and there's always something at the end of that 4 or 5 week period that you give them something, whether it be a pencil bag or a coloring book or whatever. So those are great ways to be able to get that message out as well. So,
and I think once we have a budget established, we can go out and do our homework of finding what is the best bang for our buck, whether it's coloring books or whatever the materials may be. But we needed a start.
In that regard, I think the program needs to be carefully designed and the criteria and standards be carefully crafted, because as I understand it, we cannot make charitable contributions.
Correct.
We can't go out there and pick and choose winners to receive money as charity contributions from the plant board. So this has to not stray into that arena of activity.
We will certainly pay attention to that. As I said, we hope to develop a community investment team that will make decisions like that, and that gentleman down there will always be close as our
We
attorney.
can't have any one of hundreds of organizations coming to us saying, we need $500 because we want to do this, or we want to do that, or we want $400. We decided a long time ago that we shouldn't be doing that, and it's probably illegal anyhow. And I don't want us to start to blend into that.
And I checked with some of our colleagues, and as I said, I realize this is a big jump, and we have to be very careful with all that criteria. I agree. Owensboro Municipal Utility, just for an example, their budget for this type of thing is $140,000 annually. They're very similar to us. They have 26,000 electric customers, 24,000 water customers, and only 160 telecom customers. But that's what they do. They also do a match with United Way of whatever their employees give. The board matches that, or the company matches it. It was $62,000 last year. So munis are very involved. Our friends at Conway, Arkansas, that are really just like us in design. I couldn't believe it. I talked to their version of me, and their commitment for advertising, sponsorships, and giveaways was $453,000 this year. There's a lot of effort for community outreach, and that's what we're trying to do here, is really make it about the community and how we can engage with our customers. Anything else?
David, this is, as you pointed out, this is the second year now that we've had the Budget Maestro budgeting software, and so you've had a chance to learn it, refine it, get familiar with it, everything. You happy with it?
We are. It's definitely much better than the straight up Excel, and we're able to make changes much faster, look at what if scenarios. So yes, we're definitely happy with it, and last year we were happy just to get it installed, get it implemented. I think we started in March to implement it, get it to where people could use it and turn around a budget. So that was a lot in itself just to get that going. And then I think we're getting closer to what we like to present year after year as far as a format. But no, we do. I appreciate the board's support of that. The dread doesn't start in March like it used to.
Well, one prime example is when we budgeted 1% for the COLA, and you all did 1.5%. That would have taken
Take a while.
days probably to update, and it took me like 3 minutes just to update from 1 to 1.5, and it just went over the system. So that's a prime example.
Like building a tax return on software, you change one number back into some schedule, it changes it all the way through automatically for you.
Yeah, I would second your commentary about the budget. I think your team did a great job presenting a whole lot of data in a very organized fashion.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I'd like Katrina and also the finance staff, if there was a chance to thank them every day. We've got 6 of us there, and them staying on top of details every day helps produce quality information that we can rely on. So I appreciate it, and all the staff that goes into every department figuring out what we need and over the next 5 to 10 years. So I'm glad we're to this point.
I think it is good. I had one more thing, which was the on-bill financing program that we talked about at our last meeting, and if we can work that into the budget to do a test project or do something with that. So if we could fit that into next year's budget.
Wanted to look at put it into the next 16-17 this next year coming.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
I know that was something that was brought up. One thing when Maced presented,
Chris Worley.
Chris Worley
Yep.
presented. I went ahead and after hearing you talk about having discussions about it, I put together a little something just based on the proposal that they had on the screen.
Great.
If you'd like,
Thank
I'll pass that out for you real quick.
Thank you. I didn't know when to bring it up.
No problem.
Sorry.
This just threw together some numbers based on Mr. Worley's presentation to the board in the May regular board meeting. There was a on page 2 of this handout I just gave, there were these circles that had the draft proposal pricing in them that included a range of $5,000 to $10,000 for program services to Mace A pay-as-you-save license between 25 and 30,000. Optimizer software platform between 35 and 50. A financial analysis of how this will affect customer bills and also the FPB. Is it 7,500? Operational documents, I think that's mainly getting our tariff and the program implemented between 5 and 20,000. And then a loss or risk mitigation fund of approximately 20,000 to just kind of account for any potential losses in the program. So just to get started, I think the estimated startup cost to get the program rolling would be, if you're looking at the conservative, at the high end of the range for all of those estimates, where it's $137,500 to get started. And then you have the question of just how much a year are you going to put into the program, funding-wise, to actual fund projects. Whether that's coming out of operating funds. I know a line of credit was mentioned, and if you do a line of credit, then question is, would you attach the interest on that line of credit to the individual project on the bill as well, or does the plant board absorb that cost? But I can say from their estimates, you're between 100 at the low end of all that. This is just an example of the startup to get going on that. I've not reached out to them. This is just coming off of that PowerPoint they provided. Let's just give the board a little.
Does that include money for our administration?
No. And then just below, there's just some of the things for the board to think about in a program. Basically, how much funding would we set aside each year of funds to be able to provide actually these services? Like I mentioned, would it be operating capital, or would we use debt financing for the program? Talking about what is not included in this estimate is the staff time to communicate between the customer, contractor, and MAST about the improvements. Also haven't included any discussion or cost about the review and the presentation of what to get the tariff approved, how to evaluate the bids, who's going to be modeling the energy savings, job tracking, invoicing, accounting, data reporting. All those types of things have not really been factored into the cost. This is just a fixed cost to get started. So if the board wanted to go this direction, that's the upfront cost, and then probably discussion of just how to fund the program. And then can go from there.
Well, I've been trying to sort this out since we heard Mr. Woolery, his presentation. And as I understand it, the proposal is for the Frankfort Plant Board to lend money to selected customers to do energy improvements in their home, and to charge them for this each month on their bills. So basically, the proposal is for the Frankfort Plant Board to become a lender, in effect, a lender, taking its money or money which it borrows and loaning it to certain of our customers. I'm reluctant to enter into that role, which would be new for us and be a major step change in our activities. Without a lot more consideration, examination of what it's all about, ramifications of it, cost of it, whether once into it it'll expand, whether once into it how hard it would ever be to back out. I'm just not to the point where I'd be willing to budget anything on this proposal at this time.
Well, what would you think about doing a specific project and walking it through and see how it actually plays out?
The problem with that is that we've got a proposal here that entails lending of money, a new role for the plant board. Appears to me we might need new staff, administrative costs, a lot of expensive software, a lot. And I'm reluctant to go down that road. on what we've heard thus far. Now, we were told that cooperatives, some of the cooperatives, electric cooperatives do this. Electric cooperatives are a different breed of cat from a municipal electric. And I don't know that any municipal electric is doing this.
In other states.
In other states, okay. So I don't know if we even have any legal problems with this. But even if there's no legal prohibition against it, I don't know that I want the Frankfort Plant Board to become a lender.
I believe one of the services that the Mason folks offered was to actually become the lender, and we would just be the administrator of the process.
It's not the way I understood it. Plant Board's putting up money. That is its customers' money, or money it has to borrow, which means that the customers have to pay back. I'm not ready to see this in the budget.
Well,
That's my opinion.
Okay. Maybe what we should look at or consider first is the benefit to the community, that we want to help them to deal with the upcoming energy cost increases and show them the way to improving their energy use.
I don't know that I'm not opposed to helping them, advising them, and we do that, but it's another thing to establish a lending program from the plant board to our customers. That's entirely different magnitude of participation.
Could also look at it as an investment program in the community, helping lower everyone's utility bills, and ultimately having a more robust and stable system for the community.
I would need a lot more. I mean, we talk about transparency all the time, and I'm just trying to be transparent and tell the public that we're talking about changing the plant board from what it is and adding a new function to it, a new role to it as basically a lender. And
We could see it as a lender, but it's really to promote energy efficiency.
Through lending.
Well, there's other agencies that'll do that, you know, if they want replacement windows, insulation, upgrade their heating, air conditioning systems. There's other ways to do it without getting the plant board involved in it.
Oh, what were you thinking of? Is there a state agency that helps people figure that out?
Well, I don't know specifically, but I just feel like it's not the function of the plant board to do it. I'm like Ralph. We were talking about $137,000 to start with, we haven't even done anything.
Well, there are a couple of things there. You know, that number is our top line number for the full implementation that was given in the presentation. Our getting starting number is $7.5K for the financial analysis to start having some of those answers to the questions everybody has, right? And you know, even if we agree to go ahead and budget the $137.5, one, that's a high end number, and two, there's no commitment there to finish the implementation of the plan. As we go through and we answer these questions and actually get hard data about what the risk or benefit is to the community, we can make those decisions to move forward at that point.
The company is the one that's going to be making the money.
I'm sorry?
The company that's sponsoring this is the one that's going to be making the money.
Mesa's a not-for-profit.
Yeah, they're nonprofit.
Certainly the contractors that'll be actually doing the implementations will have a profit level.
Right.
Yeah.
But they would be.
But they would have that profit layer
Yeah,
no matter
and-
how they were engaged in the system. At the end of the day, you know, the goal of the program is to reduce the bills, the utility bills of our customer base, and to do it in a way that immediately results in a lower bill to the customer. And then over the whole community results in a lower energy consumption footprint, which lowers the whole community's cost. It benefits everyone, even if they didn't get the energy savings.
That's terribly vague and speculative to hang all this on.
I believe that's the point that he was getting at in the presentation.
How many people did he anticipate would participate in the program?
That's up to us. We can set those goals and those targets as we roll the program out.
Well, you know, I had a lot of questions from the presentation, and I have not had the opportunity to go back and research like I was planning to do. But, you know, you talk about lowering the energy rates, the energy cost. You know, that was one of the reasons that we decided to get away from KU, was because we had problems with being able to control or anticipate the costs that they were pushing down upon us. We've already been told that, with our new cooperative, that obviously it's not going to be for a couple of more years, but that we would be having a significant cost savings there. When I asked about the energy, this program only relates to electric homes. What if someone has a gas heater and wants to be involved in this program? Well, he can't be involved in it, and he's still using electric for, maybe he's plugged in baseboard heaters or whatever else. He doesn't qualify for this.
Well, it would both be heating and cooling would
Well,
benefit.
all right, but still, it's for
conditioning.
total electric homes. He mentioned specifically heat pumps. And if you don't have a heat pump, well then, the way I took it from what Mr. Wooler was saying, that's not a home that can be considered.
No, but one with air conditioning would. It doesn't have to be a total electric home.
Well,
It
the
just
way
has
I
to be-
understood
It just has to be
the
a
way I
home
understood it from
that
Mr.
has
Wooler,
electric consumption.
it was a total electric home.
That's not the case.
In either case, we as a board are then having to decide who can be a part of this program and who can't be a part of this program. And, there may be low-income families that have this need, but we don't think they qualify, or we can't qualify them. So then all of a sudden now, we are singling somebody out from the benefit of a program that we're offering. From what I understood from this initial information, this was to help our Kentucky residents that live up in the Appalachian part of the state that the economy is depressed. They may not have the wherewithal to have the jobs or the employment where they could go out and qualify for a financial loan. And so I guess the MACID organization said, hey, we will help you do that through this program. Well, I think here in Central Kentucky, we have a little bit better economic situation. And, the people that need to qualify for a more energy efficient home has a better opportunity to qualify for that than having the plant board do that work for them. So I think there's still a lot of information that we need to find out before we spend any money on a test pilot program or setting up something that we don't know if there's sufficient need. There's just too many things that we have needs here in our community to do. And, running a test, I just don't see at this point in time, until we have some more concrete information, that we ought to spend any money on it. That's my opinion.
Well, one of the things I'd like to point out is that a lot of people know that they could improve caulking or simple things around their house to improve energy efficiencies, but they never really do it because they don't quite know how, they don't know what contractor to call. This would be to help people to make that first step, to actually do those improvements. And have it certified that, they're on the right track. It's too ambiguous now.
I agree with you, but I don't foresee that as a responsibility of the plant board.
Do we offer any kind of efficiency evaluations to our customers, anything at all along those lines? I think we did it one time for some of our commercial.
We did a pilot project, it's probably been 4 years ago or maybe a little longer. Maybe longer than that. We did a pilot project. I think we did 20 some homes or businesses, or maybe they were homes. And we used plant board staff to do that and do the evaluations. The process was very labor intensive. We didn't actually do any efficiency measures. We did basically the audits, and we didn't use any purchased software. We used an online program. In fact, it's the same audit that we still provide on our website from the Department of Energy. And we tried to do that at very minimal cost. There weren't specific financial goals. Again, we weren't doing a full energy audit with blower doors and those kind of things. But we did the pilot project. I don't know that we ever had any goals exactly to call it successful or not. We did the audit, and I think one of the things we definitely learned from that is if we did a program like that, we would probably have to contract it out or additional staff, because it did basically,
But even so, we wouldn't be in the position of being a lender.
At that time, no, there was no lending involved in it. No, sir.
I mean, is there not organizations like the Better Business Bureau that can, suggest or maybe have certified, home and energy efficient folks that that they're certified by the Better Business Bureau, that if they come in and they do a survey of your home, that you're not getting ripped off by this this company? I mean, I'm sure there's a list somewhere.
Well, a couple of years ago after that, if you remember, we joined Kentucky Home Performance with the Kentucky Housing Authority. I think we were one of 2 municipals in the state that became partners on that. And Kentucky Home Performance, I'll read basically what it does off their website. They help Kentucky homeowners save money and energy while improving the comfort of their homes. Do you have high energy bills? Is your heating and cooling system not keeping your home comfortable? Does your home have drafty windows and doors? Installing replacement windows, new heating or air conditioning equipment, or adding more insulation may improve your home's energy performance. But if you want to optimize your home's energy efficiency, comfort, sustainability, lower your utility bills, the way to get the best results is with the comprehensive whole house approach offered by Kentucky Home Performance. They have loan programs there through some state programs that they have. They also have vetted contractors. They have a list of those contractors. The main thing they require from the plant board is if one of our customers is using this program, then we basically agree to support them with the data that they need of their usage and things like that they need. I don't know, Monique, have you had any customers call with the Kentucky Home Performance and ask specific questions that you know of? We had a couple of years ago, but I didn't know of any recently. But but they have contractors specifically trained in energy efficient measures and installation techniques, and they will conduct an evaluation of your home, identify a scope of work to help you make your home more energy efficient and comfortable, and guide you through the financing process. But again, that's through Kentucky Housing. But that's what we've done in the past.
Is there a cost associated with that if you want to have somebody come out and have that assessment done?
I'm not 100% sure from their side. I don't believe there is, because again, I think the contractors are angling for that work. But Kentucky Home Performance, I know they do vet all the contractors. If they don't do the particular jobs they're supposed to, then they take them off their contract list. Again, that's KentuckyHomePerformance.org is their website. And
that sounds a whole lot like
a partner on
basic.
it, but we haven't. But they do have loans. You can apply for loans through that. But those aren't through the plant board, is my understanding.
Which would be the same situation if we use Mason for a lender, we wouldn't be in a lending business. And the other thing that I would point out there is that it's not a service based on. It doesn't sound like, I'm not familiar with it. It doesn't sound like it's a service based on actual benefit, where they're prioritizing the improvements and then offering a smooth way for the customer to finance. And also, it wouldn't be an option that would be available to a renter, which would be something that's available through the MASED type structure. And also, as a point of correction earlier, MASED's not, or the programs like on-bill financing that MASED supports aren't particularly geared towards low-income areas. They're across the United States available in a lot of different socioeconomic areas.
Okay, I thought they were.
MASED in particular is focused on that, but the program is a broader national structure. Yeah.
So they're just like a middleman or a facilitator?
They are implementing some of the same processes that are on this chart.
Right.
So they'll organize some of that for us. That was part of what Chris was trying to present to us, is that we could consume as much of this as we wanted in-house, or they would provide the services.
So, but it
facilitate
also
for us.
sounds like this program here, so there's another program out there that's available that we maybe should evaluate more than just the MASIC program.
Possibly.
I wasn't aware of the Kentucky Housing
We are
program
listed
through
on
there.
their website as a utility partner. But anyway, it might be something if the board wanted to, KentuckyHomePerformance.org, and I think there's a link on our website to it as well, but it might be something to investigate a little more.
So there also
Okay.
are some alternatives.
So there's one
Well,
maybe.
I have no further business today unless someone else does. I don't want to budget anything for this.
You did mention that we should look at it and further study. How should we proceed on that?
We can work with the staff to, or we wish to do, but I don't want it in the budget. I want it as a budgeted item to go into this program. I don't know what the rest of y'all want to do. If you have a motion, make a motion.
Adjourn.
Do we have a motion for anything?
Motion to adjourn.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed, say no. Motion stands adjourned. Now, we have hearings at 5 o'clock on electric and water rate increases. And one other item, I believe, so that's at 5 o'clock, and it is what, 4:15. So we have a little break between meetings.
Not much.